Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night for one final Star Trek Picard episode discussion. So a bit of a bittersweet experience, I think, if people have been enjoying the show, which looks like a lot of people have been.
The last Star Trek ever. This is it.
No, if only that was the case, and then I could go
Take a
sleep
nap.
and rest. But the
You got, like,
CBS
8
All
weeks.
Access and or not CBS All Access anymore. Paramount Plus with Showtime
Maybe
and
this,
Alex Kurtzman aren't done
this-
with us yet.
Maybe this break that you're about to get is good, Father.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be, but it's
It's
not
crazy
break
though,
time
Father.
yet. So
It's crazy because I remember like season 1 of Discovery. I saw all these reports that it was canceled and it's not canon. I don't know how we're even here. This show was clearly Star Trek hasn't been going for years, right?
I think this is just fan fiction.
I don't
I
think
don't think it was actually authorized or anything.
I don't think people still say that anymore, or if they do,
No,
I
sorry.
don't
It's
hear
a
it,
little
but-
residual just bitterness at the
I-
Yahoos. I just had to
Now
get
they're
it
like,
out.
oh, finally it's canceled. Like, yeah, like it's not because of all those other
I-
months that it wasn't or time went.
I definitely still see that, and my theory is that people feel more comfortable saying that shit to a woman. Still,
Yeah, that is.
when they talk about their love of Star Trek
That's-
Discovery.
You know, that is totally a phenomenon. Not like a Star Trek thing. I'm sure it happens with Star Trek, but like in
Yeah.
total life, because like
No,
every woman I talk to tells me like all these like shitty like things that I guess like asshole men say when other men aren't around. It's like, okay, they can't all be making this up. Like surely like this must really be happening. So
Yeah, it's a thing like at the comic and game shop that I manage that if we have a female staffer and she is alone, she will be treated differently than if there was a male staffer there with her. It's awful. Let us please get to Star Trek times and so
Yeah.
that we
That
can
is-
get past this
Yeah.
stupid shit.
well, on that note, let's leave our 21st century
Yeah.
worries behind and go to the 25th century for one final adventure with the TNG crew. I'm Fathery,
This is Dave.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Aaron.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 239th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new, and what started over 35 years ago ends tonight with the what
The
is
line must be
widely
drawn here.
what's widely billed as the I guess like the final adventure of the TNG crew, which launched their show in 1987, so it is over 35 years ago.
It's pretty wild. I mean, this is legit historic.
This is crazy because I'm such a big fan. I have to remind myself. I was like, this has been around since before I was born. Like,
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing is like, Aaron, I guess you and I might be the ones that were you there for the premiere of TNG?
Yeah, I was in high school.
Same. Or I don't remember if I was in high school, but I remember watching it over at my
just in high school.
grandmother's apartment at the time with the family. We had no idea what to expect and just happened to be watching,
Yeah.
fired up. So I can say that although I have not been as devoted to Trek as I think you other three, I have been there the whole time.
I think it's the show that I like last remember everybody watching. Like, even my mom, who doesn't care about television mostly. She was like, she made food and we had popcorn and stuff like that. And I was like, probably because I was excited, but we all watched it.
But it
and-
kind of was an occasion.
yeah, for that movie,
Dave-
like the 2 hour whatever the premiere.
Dave, you had a interesting journey with TNG, just like your personal relationship with the show, because you've told me that like that night that encounter at Farpoint came out when I guess you were, it's probably like right before your 14th birthday, I think 87, right?
Sounds about right. Yeah, somewhere around there.
How old is Matt? How much older is he than you?
Matt's 5 years older than I am.
So he was like 19, but y'all were like watching it, and like he was like, "Yeah, this is nowhere near as good as the original," and like you were like, "Yeah, big brother, it's nowhere near as good as the original." But it grew
that
on
is
you
a slightly
over the
heightened
decades.
version that you're giving there, Fathery. But yeah, sure, that's in the ballpark.
As someone with older brothers, I get it.
Yeah, I was a snarky teen, and everything was kind of that was the perfect period to kind of snark at stuff. So yeah, I've I watched it pretty faithfully, but more spottily as the series went on. I definitely I watched it with my brother. He was house sitting for someone, and I remember us watching the season finale too, or series finale. So so it's not like it didn't have its hooks in us, even as we were poking. Oh, interesting. Even as we were poking some fun at it. So.
But it aged like wine with you, right? Like
as it turns out, yeah.
Every year you like it more and more.
Good wine,
not that Chateau Picard shit.
Not this bullshit. I got this bottle of Chateau Picard. Nice. I'm gonna bust open and drink actually, but
I took Guinan's whiskey from behind the bar.
There you go.
I have a Mike Chard lemonade. I don't know if I got that out of a replicator. I also have normal lemonade. I guess I just like lemonade.
I wish I was as cool as y'all, but I just have tea iced cold. That's
just lie and say it's like 50% vodka, or better yet, 47% vodka.
Long Island iced tea there, yeah.
I also replicated cookies.
Oh no, I did like legit like make Earl Grey at work the other day because I was tired, and I made a joke to my coworker and didn't know what I was talking about. I was oh no, I was like I was like, our nerdy levels are not the same.
I was hoping that level that was still saturating the pop culture, and I think it is. But to a degree,
she's a little older and like has a kid, so maybe she just doesn't have time for that.
Yeah, that's possible.
Well, the episode we're talking about, the series finale, so the season 3, episode 10, The Last Generation, was written and directed by season 3 showrunner Terry Matalas. Before we get into it, and there's a lot that we're going to talk about. It's going to be a lot to unpack. These season finales normally take us, they take us longer to cover everything, and we've never really talked about a new series finale before. This is the first one in this new era, so
that's true.
It's an unprecedented event for Tex-Trek.
Yeah, it'll happen again with Discovery.
Yeah, in about a year. Mm-hmm. About a year from now, we'll be talking about we'll be toasting the end of Disco. So,
and that'll be an interesting one too, because that's kind of that's getting ready for. That is what launched Tex-Trek.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the Discovery one will also be more bittersweet because we always knew like Picard had an end date.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Discovery one was just like, nope. By the way, we're ending, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, but there's also so much weight to Picard's, and that's one of the things that fascinated me about it is that, well, I watched they did the season finale of Mandalorian this week, and it had certain elements of similarities of crowd pleaser qualities and things as Picard, but Picard just had so much more emotional resonance because I got 35 years history with these characters.
Yeah,
that's a good point, Dave. Like if they screw the pooch on the Disco finale in a year, it'd be like, well, that sucked. They dropped the ball on that. But, I hope some of these folks pop up in the Academy show, something like that. But like, if they had messed this up, then it's like, well, we're probably never going to get all 7 of them on screen together. So that was a downer.
No one will ever be able to afford that ever again.
Yeah.
We'd actually have to do the slingshot effect.
Trying to get even more in there, and the budget people just said, no, absolutely not.
I have heard a variety of reactions on this episode and on this season, but I think overall we can agree it's been pretty overwhelmingly positive. Not everyone is like, oh, I love it, this is my best Trek ever. There are those who are like that though, but most people are at least like, yeah, it's a little too fan servicey for me, but still it's good. That's normally like the most like negative things I'm hearing. Of course, you're not going to please everyone. There's always going to be people who just turn their nose up to anything and everything, but
I think you're objectively right when you say, Father, most people overwhelmingly positive.
I know there's always that joke. It was like fan service hits different when you're the fan that's being serviced.
Yes.
Like,
Or
and you're like, actually, I'm fine with fan service. It turns out.
Yeah, it's good if it's what you want.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to have two opinions. Like, there's the yes, I love this as a fan. Then like, if I think about it,
as a critic, however.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the opinions vary on how much objectivity belongs in talking about art entertainment, or even is it possible can something be can a piece of art be objectively good or bad?
No, that's my opinion. Like,
yeah, I think it's pretty. That's actually a pretty clear-cut answer in a way. It's like it can't, but I think you can lean towards being more objective. You can shoot for it. It's like maybe a thing to sometimes aspire to. So, yeah, I think let's see where we land on it.
Well, before we talk about it, I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters who made this journey possible. That's going to be Starfleet Sohel. I didn't call him boy this time like I did last week. I got it right. Starfleet Sohel. Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchy, Joanne Robertson, John Dog, Geek Filter, Earl Grey Trekkie, Quarks Bar, Benjinium, Stephanie Durantes, a new supporter, Matthew Averett. Thank you for signing up, Matthew. And of course, our anonymous supporters. To celebrate, we're going to be having a Patreon watch party on May 20th. That's going to be a Saturday afternoon. We do those in the Tex-Trek Discord server. We do one every month. This one's going to be really fun, though, because we're doing it to celebrate Aaron's birthday.
Yay!
So, Aaron, you selected a fun episode for us to watch. You want to remind everyone what episode are we watching with the patrons on May 20th?
You can watch your Futures End. No, it's the Futures End Part 1 and 2 of Voyager. So they go to 1996 Los Angeles, where I was at the time. So that's just kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You get to see Tom Paris get flirty with Sarah Silverman before anyone knew who Sarah Silverman was in 1996.
Yep.
And the best of 90s fashion.
Yeah. Tuvok dons a do-rag.
It's the only way to hide those ears.
And shoots a phaser. So you get the most gangster-looking Tuvok ever.
We have Chakotay looking like George Clooney, and Janeway is basically wearing a Hillary Clinton-esque outfit.
Yeah.
I went back and matched it up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what they were going for.
Did I not say Tex-Trek Discord server? Did I say something else? I might have.
Or is he just celebrating it? Maybe. I don't.
John's active.
You might have said Patreon, but the actual.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
We watch with the patrons in Discord. There's other parts of the Discord server where anyone can just hang out and have fun conversations with us. But I encourage people to join and check that out if that's your scene. But if you want to help out on Patreon, come in as little as $2 a month. That'll get you into the monthly watch parties. And if you want to be more generous, there's some additional perks as well that you can look into. Links to everything in the description, wherever you're watching or listening to this. But with all of that out of the way, I guess we got to talk about some news. There's a lot of news this week, huh? We had Section 31 is going to be a movie. I had been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks that they're for sure going to be pushing for something with Michelle Yeoh, but it ain't going to be an ongoing show.
You were right.
I think we've all, or most of us, have expressed some interest, but also some trepidation. More so, I'm going to say in Aaron's case, about Section 31. But I will say this: a movie is an opportunity to kind of get in and get out. Hopefully, it'll be punchy and can maybe be the subversive thing about a subversive organization that we hope it would be.
Rachel,
Section 31 to a good point, or to a good use, but sometimes they just don't. That's I think the problem.
Yeah, and I have an opinion on that. And Rachel, I want to hear what you were about to say after I say thank you to Jill47 for the generous $3 super chat. Jill says, thanks for Data's Day. That was our watch party episode for April that we just watched a few days ago. And there's actually a reference to Data's Day in this episode of Picard, or this week's episode of Picard that I'll talk about in the Gorn eggs at the end.
Oh, okay.
So stick around to the end of the show.
It.
You might learn something about Data's Day. But Rachel, what were you saying?
I was saying, I think I would have been excited anyways, but I have a good friend of mine who absolutely loves Giorgio. Not a surprise. The type of character he absolutely loves, his favorite character is Poison Ivy, like that. And so the joy I got telling him that this movie was happening was so good.
Yeah. That's at the comic shop I manage. The other day, a book came in that I knew somebody was going to be interested in that they wouldn't be expecting. And when I told him, he like about exploded with happiness. It was sometimes you just get the right thing for
Adorable.
the right person, and it's great.
Yeah.
Well, with Section 31, I was really nervous when they first announced this project 4 frickin' years ago, right before Disco Season 2 came out in like January of 2019. But
the world was a different place then. It really was.
Very, very different.
I was literally sitting in the audience of the improvised generation, and when Bowie and Erica came in, and they're just like, "Oh my god, we're so excited!" You know, we were talking about it, and just like, I can't wait till all this starts, and then just obviously didn't happen.
Yeah.
The Discovery writers who were going to be the showrunners on that show, and they had actually, I don't think they scripted like a full 10 episode season, but I think they broke an entire season. They probably, wrote the first 2 or 3 or something, but so, and just the fact that,
they definitely had made headway.
Yeah, and the fact that they like paid because writers don't write for free. They're about to go on strike possibly actually. So it's like they were getting paid to do that. So that showed there's like big interest in doing something. Just I was very nervous because of my feelings with Section 31. People know my least favorite thing of Picard, probably of like just modern Star Trek in general, is the use of Section 31, saying that they're a critical part of Starfleet intelligence. And I, as a big DS9 fan, I actually like the idea of Section 31 if they're allowed to be separate from Starfleet, if they're allowed to be bad guys who happen to be on the same side as the good guys. I think that puts your good guys in an interesting spot where you can tell good stories and where you can tell stories that I think adhere to the quote unquote, Roddenberry vision of future humanity. What if there are like some bad actors in humanity and they get together and they're going to try to do shady stuff? What position does that put you in? I think that's all very appropriate. Just the way that Section 31 has been depicted in many shows lately, it's just it makes me feel like a little uneasy. And the things that Bowie and Erica were saying of like, oh, we're gonna like make it all fit and work out and connect all the dots and all the, why does people not remember Section 31 and DS9? Like, we're gonna explain all of that. I was like, cool, I want y'all to make this show. I want this explanation. And now that they were changing it to a movie, I'm like, oh, it might be very different. So I'm possibly
we might get a
excited,
book related to it though. That could be, you can always have like Dayton Ward and David Mack and those people do like lead up to it or something like that.
Book would be a good place to work out some of the details.
The books are normally great and stuff like that. And honestly, like a lot of the fans are, we're pretty clever at like, we stress about this stuff. We worry about it. And like, we come up with some creative headcanon solutions to stuff. We're all connected with the Borg hive mind through the internet now. So
fire.
But yeah, we got the Section 31 news, and there was a Strange New Worlds trailer. People already heard me talk about it with our friend Sohel a couple days ago. We also did a reaction to the Section 31 movie news, me and Rachel. So if people want to see those streams, they're still on YouTube. Folks can go watch them. But does anyone have any quick thoughts they want to spit out on the Strange New Worlds Season 2 trailer?
I just want to ask one thing. Well, first, yay Klingons, but also, was that a Gorn? Was that was like right in somebody's face? It was like, rah.
Yes, with 2 shots taken directly from the Alien movies.
Yeah.
So
we joked about that, and now it's there.
Yeah, the one shot was like a close up of the mouth opening with like the fangs and saliva dripping off of the teeth, and then after that, there's a shot of, it looks like a Gorn and La'an, Nooney, and Singh are about to kiss. It's like when Sigourney is like face to face with the alien and the Alien 3.
Yeah.
Like when he like came in like the shower to attack her or something. So
they may be still running with the Alien Predator stuff.
Yeah, like definitely. Like in case you were worried, they might have forgotten that they depict Gorn as xenomorphs. It's like, no, they're still doing that in Season 2.
Was the in-your-face Gorn? Was it like an adult Gorn though? Like we've only seen kind of like the little hatch.
Yeah, I think it was a larger version of the baby that we saw.
A surly
I was gonna call it teenage Gorn, and then
I
was a teenage Gorn.
People should go watch that stream and tell us what you leave a comment telling us what you think it looks like.
I thought it was really fun, and I kind of like the joke of Spock being like, I don't know what you're asking me when you're asking me to like come up with a quippy thing to say.
Well, 7 of 9 might have thoughts on that too.
But I did think it was like a good, energetic trailer. It got me kind of hyped for that. Like lots of good. I like something that shows you very little, but just kind of gives you that energy.
It gives you the vibe, which is what a trailer should give you. An exciting vibe that makes you go, "Oh, I want to watch that," but doesn't give too much away.
Yeah, gave a lot of tone, which is mainly like, hey, it's more of that season 1 tone, but didn't give away much story stuff. Just it did show like the two. Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm really excited about the last scene that is very blurred, but it's just like there's so many weird little inconsistencies with that version of Kirk that it has to be something different, but it's also like in a Canadian clothing store. So like, is it time travel and an alternate universe version? Like there's like so many things crammed into that, just that one little blurb. Like, okay, I'm excited to find out what that's about.
Yeah, I think it might be a Yesterday's Enterprise situation, where like this is like an alternate Kirk, but he's like gone back in time and they'll fix whatever made him alternate because he's like, I'm from space. It's like, no, you literally tell people like I only work in space. I'm from Iowa. Like,
maybe somehow
he was also a captain, which he wasn't at that point either.
Yeah,
his rank stripes.
Kelvin universe, Kirk is from space. He was born in space.
Interesting point. How crazy is this about to get?
But yeah, it'll be fun to see.
At one point about crossing the Kelvin universe over.
There was something at one point.
I think there was
that
something.
was the Discovery. That was the Discovery thing when they said like, "Oh, here's a."
Well, yeah. Besides that, though, like after
I think years, or I don't know. They can't get those people to come back for like they can't figure out the budget to get those people to come back for a movie.
Unless they've got something real set in stone, they probably should not be messing with that very unstable now universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're going to cross over anywhere, it seems like it's kind of pretty similar to Strange New World, so it kind of would make more sense to go take them somewhere else. Or it's like, hey, it's like Spock, and they're like both trying to like do a new version of Leonard Nimoy's thing. It's but yeah, just I love the first season of Strange New Worlds. There were 2 things I didn't like, and that was Paul Wesley's Kirk and the xenomorph Gorn. Both of those are back in season 2, so hopefully I like them more this time. I will try. I will go in rooting for them, wanting to like them. We'll see where I land. Hashtag the Starship is landing. The Enterprise is landing. Enterprise H is, or G or whatever letter we're on is landing.
I nearly made that joke this week in a very inappropriate time with the wrong people, so I'm glad I did. I just stopped myself.
Good job.
Were you around
the people who actually
came
worked
up with
on
yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. And they're like, we the reactions made me look like I was an idiot, but I'm like, okay, it's better than like them getting mad at me.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna recap the episode real quick by reading the official synopsis, and I'll kind of expand on that with some spoilers. But the official synopsis reads: in a desperate last stand, Jean-Luc Picard and generations of crews, both old and new, fight together to save the galaxy from the greatest threat they've ever faced as the saga of Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's what I've been calling it all these weeks. I call it like the TNG saga. So it's like the Paramount Plus marketing people are clearly still listening to Tex-Trek. The saga of Star Trek: The Next Generation comes to a thrilling, epic conclusion. And I don't know, like, I feel like we can probably like skip opening statements this week because we're gonna I think we're just gonna have so many like fun little sidebars and weird
totally
little tangents we go
Yeah.
on to, but we've all I know for a fact like we've all enjoyed this episode. We've compared notes a little bit off camera, off mic. So let's just start off with the very beginning with the Enterprise D having to be the cavalry, having to come to the rescue because there's no one else available except for these bunch of 70-year-olds.
Before you actually even get there with the title alone, Last Generation, do we feel broadly that is meant to? I mean, things have multiple meanings.
Multiple meanings,
but it is both the last of the Next Generation crew, but it's also the last generation of Borg as we know it.
And it's also kind of a story of the previous generation being the TNG people. Like last is in previous, where it's like if if the Borg win, then like they're they were like the last generation of humanity before the Borg.
But and when they gave it that title, it sounds ominous. You're like, oh shit, they're all gonna die.
Which Terry wanted everyone to think that he told that to me and Sohel when we were we did a stream that Terry watched, and people I think it might have even been Jill, but it was people in our audience were like freaking out, like, no, I don't want any legacy characters to die. And then Terry was Sohel messaged Terry and was like, yeah, like I think some of our people are like really worried, and Terry just replied, good.
Hey, you want that suspense.
Yes.
Any writer wants that suspense.
And I said last week on the show, like my prediction was like, I don't think they're gonna die. I think all 7 are gonna make it. I know I've changed my mind on that.
But I was literally like playing with my fidget things. Like
I was
nervous.
so worried. I was so worried.
Yeah, especially as they got towards the end, they did a lot of. There was a decent number of sometimes for me overly familiar action adventure tropes in it, and a lot of them were the final farewells and last heroic stands, and a little overly familiar. But that also meant that I was like, at any given time, I was like, Worf, Riker, Picard, any one of them possible.
I mean, they all had those goodbye moments, like.
Yep.
I'll be back in a moment, Imzadi. I was like, is
a
he
lot of
not gonna
endings.
make it?
Yeah.
Aaron, we watched it together. I messaged you. I was like,
Yeah.
well, is this the last time all 7 of them are going to be in a room? Like, it felt like it could have been.
Genuinely was like, oh no. I meant to look it up. Do we know who was playing Chekhov in that scene?
That is
It's Walter
100% Walter Koenig.
Okay, that's what I thought
He's
it was.
Todd Stashwick's neighbor. Todd went next door and knocked on the door and said, hi.
That is hilarious,
basically?
and I love that.
Aaron, so the other part of that story, on the Star Trek cruise last year, Walter Koenig was there, and he told the story of I live next to one of the Picard guys, one of those actors, and I talked to the showrunner. He said he's going to get me on the show, but I don't know if that's still happening. We haven't done anything yet. And I'm thinking like, okay, might be like a hologram or something, or I don't know, like a flashback.
It sounds like they wanted to actually do video, but like something just didn't work out.
I think what they did like worked really well, especially that he's playing like the son of Chekhov. It's crazy.
And I love that he imitates himself doing Chekhov. That was great.
That was a nice touch. But it's kind of weird for like a son to sound exactly like his dad. If you don't have to see him and see that like he looks 100% identical to it, I guess it makes it like a little bit more believable.
Also, I love that his name was Anton.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's double meaning to that too, which is great.
Right,
because what's the double meaning?
Well, Anton Chekhov was the playwright.
The writer, right? The playwright.
Anton Yelchin, who played,
and then
Chekhov.
Anton Yelchin.
That's neat. I hadn't thought about that one. That's cool.
See, I thought of that first. Like, I don't know.
I know Star Trek more than literature, so when I heard Anton, I was like, oh, Anton Yelchin. Later,
I thought Chekhov because we have improvised Chekhov, so it's like my brain it always goes to.
I do also know in literature, but I was enough people Star Trek fan like the day he passed away that like that was like my whole day was talking about that.
Yeah.
They've paid homage to Anton Yelchin a few times in recent Trek, but yeah, it was really tragic. Like no one was expecting him to be the the next main Star Trek actor to pass. And it was like he went from like he was the youngest. I think
stupid what happened.
Just like a freak accident. Yeah.
Well,
Really
certainly a freak accident that they kind of knew could happen.
Oh the car was getting recalled.
So Anton Chekhov in this is president of the Federation?
Yes.
Seems like
the same position of the guy with the big hair back in Trek 4?
Yeah.
Or the guy who may or may not have been blind in Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
Who is Red Foreman in one of his various Star Trek appearances.
And that blue dude in Deep Space Nine. I don't remember what species.
He wasn't. Right? He wasn't blue. He was a cow. He was a grazerite.
Oh, I don't know why
I'm glad he's not
like the nose piece thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's not president anymore because he always bothered me how much he looked like a cow. And it's like, I was like, you can't go into the Dominion War with a president who looks like a cow. Like that's just not gonna. You're not gonna win.
The Dominion is really scared of cows. You never know.
So Anton Chekhov though does a pretty good job of recapping the stakes. It's like this. His intro is like, hey, the shit has hit the fan, and we are utterly wrecked if something doesn't happen.
It was really good, and like in a way where like I was listening to the fact, but then like also emotional over like it being a Chekhov and like.
And he did a little callback, which I'm sure we'll talk about in Gore and the Gore and Eggs about there being possibilities, though, which embodies kind of the Trek philosophy.
Dave, you like to talk about how this season largely embodies a lot of the movie style of Star Trek, you know, kind of the more bombastic, more focused on action adventure, little less thoughtful, but they might dial up like the emotional beats a little bit. One of the things they also do in the movies is they show Earth in jeopardy. I guess because it was just like appeal to like the broader audience. But you know they spend a lot of time.
The only planet that's important in the Federation.
They spend a lot of time in the Sol system. I guess they spend the entire episode in the Sol system. Now that I think about it, but I thought like the use of Jupiter. It's like, you know, our solar system. It does seem like less exotic in Star Trek because you know it is so like it's real lifey. But no, Jupiter can be like pretty epic and cool. I thought that was kind of a badass location for the final battle with the Borg.
That was really cool, and also the way like the idea we're acting like none of us have been to Jupiter. Like
It is it is a cool looking
planet. We've seen
planet.
a lot of photos of it. Like part of
so many.
And they do always emphasize like I don't know how many it is, like 38 Earths would just for the diameter of it.
It'd be a lot cooler if it was 47.
Amazing.
And so yes, like if you're gonna hide something big, that's a pretty solid place.
I'm so jealous, Aaron.
When they were doing this, because it goes like whatever, the whole they did the thing with the rumbling seats. We're like, whoa!
Oh wow!
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the Borg is 36% operational. That's funny because I saw someone pointed out that in the Best of Both Worlds, Shelby says that a Borg ship can continue to be a threat even if it's 78% of it is inoperable. So according to Shelby's logic, this cube is still very much a threat. But it's a cool idea that the Borg would be like, oh yeah, we're just going to take our transwarp corridors where we could pretty much go anywhere in the galaxy, and we're going to go right into your backyard in Jupiter because it's this big ass gas giant, and y'all's weak ass Federation ships probably can't even come down into the gas giant like our strong ass cubes can. So fuck you.
I feel like by the 25th century, they'd probably have a lot more kind of infrastructure. They could get down there, I'm sure, if they wanted to. But no one's going to be looking down there. So there has to be
something.
It's not like they can hang out on Jupiter,
right?
But also, they shouldn't have been the first people to detect this, though. That if we're talking real, this is where the fan servicey thing in my brain goes. Wait a second, wait.
Oh, I also kind of thought that maybe they hadn't been on Jupiter that long, and China just went there.
Oh, the conduit just opened and they
just opened the conduit to get Jack.
That's what I was thinking. They just rose up from Jupiter.
Because my thought was they wanted to get Jack as their transmitter thing. They wanted to get him close to them without being noticed. So they were like, okay, let's pop up into that one in Jupiter.
That works.
So I did not think
I like the idea of having a
chilling in Jupiter
conduit open inside of a gas giant. That's actually really cool too.
Yeah.
There's some interesting reactions. You have Deanna being like, "Oh, I've never felt anything quite like this before." She says it's like a lonely pain.
Oh, yeah, I wrote it down actually while I was watching. Let's see.
Quiet suffering.
Sorry for her.
Quiet suffering. Yeah.
She says she detects quiet suffering. Data is really hateful towards the Borg.
I love this version of Data, by the way.
That's that lore side of them wants to bloody their nose.
One thing I was like, oh, I'm sad that we might not get any more of this version of Data.
Yeah. It's this is the first time I'm I really enjoy this. He's acting enough and not just there's something weird about him when he doesn't act. He's overacting.
Yeah,
because
they
somehow.
basically changed Data to be more similar to Brent Spiner, so it's like he doesn't have to. He can just be himself, and he is kind of a smart ass in real life. And he can.
Yes.
Well, maybe
he said he enjoyed
maybe
working with his favorite actor himself.
Maybe he can promote Star Trek app games as this Data. No, a sad fate. There's always possibilities.
Well, Alex Kurtzman wants to make a movie every 2 years, which I'm super excited about that, by the way. Like, I'm more excited about that than that we're getting like Section 31. I'm like, oh, well, what could they do after that? So yeah, I think Data
32.
Are these theatrical release movies, or is this going to be like like a Paramount Plus movie?
No, they'll be on streaming. But I mean, that makes
It'll
sense.
Probably do this like they're doing the IMAX things.
Right, limited release.
Yeah. Just to go on a tangent here, but I think that makes a lot of sense since Paramount Pictures, because we got to remember, it's all the same company right now, but Paramount Films, it's like a different group than Paramount Plus. The people who decide if there's going to be Star Trek movies are different people than who decide what goes on Paramount Plus. The movie people are adamant that they need a big blockbuster movie, and the only way to do that is with Chris Pine and the Kelvin movie. So that's kind of the only thing they want to do right now. If that is their, I mean, and that's their prerogative, I guess. I hate to say it because I love seeing Star Trek in the movie theater, but okay, fine. We don't need them. We can do the movies on Paramount Plus. And I think television's gotten cinematic enough now. And I'm kind of okay with if Star Trek feels a little more like TV and less like movies anyways, because that's kind of its natural environment.
That's where it's, exactly.
I mean, all of our TVs are big enough now.
Yeah.
Rachel, you pointed out that Trek culture was calling it long treks instead of short treks.
Yes,
and we all thought short treks was a neat idea, right? It's a little anthology. You could do any type of Star Trek story. Still could be, but the execution of those always felt kind of like small and for the most part and like a little half baked and like not as much like effort and polish went into those. If they're doing like these big event movies, I think that's going to be more likely to work. So I'm excited. I'm glad that they're trying this. And I think the 25th century, it's very fertile ground at the end of this episode. I would love to see some movies set there if they're not going to have a show ready anytime soon. But we can see more of a Hateful Data or whatever he does. I don't know. He's got some therapy with Troy. Maybe they'll work on those issues. But this is where we start getting like the goodbyes when they're like, okay, like Geordi, you stay here, you're in command. Riker and Worf, you're with me, and the Riker and Troy goodbye.
That look between them, I think they just do the silent look that sort of says it all. I really like that.
Well, Riker does say, like, he says something like, "I'll be back in a little bit" or something like that.
Yeah.
Right, but then they kind of exchange a look like, we know this might be it. We know what you just said might not be true.
And I always, which was in my head very much backed up by later, I kind of thought like, oh, they're telepathically probably saying something to each other.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Because
that works too. I like that. I like that as well.
And Picard's, it's been an honor serving with you all. Like you believe like.
That's when I went like, oh shit, is this it?
Yeah.
Like,
you know what's kind of funny? I can't help but do this, and I did this when I was watching Prodigy, and they were in the middle of all their ship battle stuff too, and everything was going crazy. And they, there were some emotional character moments. There were some farewells in that too. And occasionally I was like, you guys need to hurry up. Just get out the elevator, run it like Kelvin verse running down the corridor speeds and go get some shit done. Stop saying long goodbyes. But no, of course, cinematically, this is the right call.
Yeah, he's like 95, so
these scenes had some weight to them, and obviously,
I think especially at this age, this is how you use Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, they gave him some really good
he's
material.
Better at talking than running.
Yeah.
I was glad that he didn't. We're like trying to turn him into an action hero at some point.
You know what, Patrick? Me too. Don't worry about it. Like,
Snoopy McQueen in the live audience has given a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Snoop. He goes on to say, Picard season 3 finale, best Trek episode ever. Great way to end the TNG era. Got to see Seven from being Borg to captain. Snoop, I don't know if I'll agree it's the best episode ever, but it is a very good one. And I too was thrilled to see Seven, my favorite Voyager character, become captain, not just any captain, but captain of an Enterprise. She's like one of my favorite.
We have an
Enterprise
LGBTQ
captains now.
captain of the Enterprise now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
Hell yeah.
that's a first.
And when what will almost has to become a couple at some point.
Yep.
We will see the fanfic notion of Kirk and Spock brought to life.
It
Yeah,
sounds
that
like
would be
Terry
fun,
Matalas
yeah.
was saying that their relationship was on hold, like we were talking about, like very early on, and that was never brought up again. That
Mhm.
because of all of her back, Section 30, not Section 31, but her Starfleet intelligence work. So they were only not dating because that was part of the
Yeah.
cover.
Or they're
Or at
kind
least
of
their
dating.
relationship was, yeah.
Like when, and I think what might be revealed is that when they're just like, hey, you, and like stuff like that, they're just like pretending, and then like when no one was around, they're just like all over each other back in Seven's
know
quarters.
what?
That would be a great
for
first
them.
episode, early scene.
But I think that's
Okay,
actually going to be like a
Okay,
plot
someone just
point in
write
something.
that. Someone write that fan fiction for me and send it to me. That's all I need. Like,
But I
don't
think
have the time to write it, so I need you to.
because I saw Terry said something else today, or it might have been yesterday, but he was
Mhm.
saying that if we did pick this up in Legacy, he's really pushing that Legacy show he wants to make. I don't know if that'll ever get green lit, but I'm sure something will be. But he was saying that his idea was that like they're like keeping it secret because they don't know, like, okay, you're a captain, I'm your first officer, and so so I think his idea would be like, okay, season 1 of his show, they're like in a secret relationship that they don't want the rest of the crew to know about. And I get that as a writer, that sounds extremely fun because that's so much dramatic opportunities.
That
a lot of good scenes can come out
There's
of
like
that.
a good drama and good comedy to come out
Yeah.
of that. So I
That
fully
feels
get
a little
that.
bit like Mariner's secret too from Lower Decks.
Oh yeah,
You can have like that kind of.
I think it would get old if you draw
Fun
it out
tension.
too long. If you have like,
Yeah,
I
not-
think it needs to be. These are both sitcoms, but like Friends and Parks and Rec does something similar, where for like a quarter of a season, people date in secret, and then like the hijinks that come with that.
Does it become an open secret at some point, and then they can just kind of like everybody's like, well, obviously it's working. Y'all are both being professional, so let's just let's acknowledge it and not have to keep it a secret.
I mean, that was how that is not how it happens on Parks and Rec and Friends. Friends, they don't work with each other. And one is the brother of one of the people, so he's just like, what the hell? Parks and Rec, they have to like admit it, so they and then they have to have like a trial to make sure there's like they didn't do any wrongdoing because of like the relationship.
So you got like a courtroom episode out of it.
I hope the Starfleet is more tolerant of these kind of things when they work. I know you'd still, I think, even in a utopian future, you'd want to be careful about hierarchies and power in
showing
dating.
favoritisms.
Captains can date their crew members because Picard had Lieutenant Darren as a girlfriend for a whole episode that one time. And what lessons?
But I think there's probably meant to be done cautiously.
Yes.
Yeah. It also seemed like it was kind of that relationship was sort of a little frowned on by other people. That was
a lot of people frown upon that relationship. Yeah, these days.
Not in like the audience though. I meant in the show.
Okay.
There was, like,
in the show, people did not
the audience, if it's
reactions.
Picard and not Beverly, it's just. Sometimes I want to say, you realize these are characters, right? They're not actual people, and you can't control their lives, and they don't actually have a life. But
also, since they're characters, just go write your fan fiction. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
Father, you've got the screenshot up of the creepy tomb-like Borg cube, which I will say, my initial reaction, although it makes all the visual sense for them to have done it, was I was like, this is kind of a dumpy-looking Borg cube. Usually they're much more impressive-looking, but I'm like, it was supposed to be dark and kind of shadowy.
Yeah,
very Geiger-esque.
It's a good way to me because it made sense. It was a good way to like save a little money.
There's a lot of TNG and Voyager era, like Borg stuff in there. Like the regeneration alcoves looked very similar to what we saw in First Contact and Voyager. There's those little upside down pyramid things on the ceiling that I think we first saw in the Best of Both Worlds. I think there's supposed to be some type of like transceiver or something. But yeah, the idea of like these Borg corpses and how like their flesh is being cannibalized of the ship itself. Like the queen is sacrificing her children, her collective, to preserve herself long enough to hatch her plan here.
It's creepy and cool.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
The Borg creepiness I thought was on point. Like they still felt very Borgy to me as like someone who watched TNG and Voyager growing up, but it also felt like new and different and very creepy.
Yeah, it brought back some of the the danger that was removed during Voyager.
They didn't do the very obvious thing, and I'm glad they didn't, because it's one of the coolest things with the Borg, but also it's been done many times, which is just the walking amongst the zombies, essentially. They could wake up at any moment, and really that they only kind of did a version of that with Worf and Riker near the very end.
Well, these Borg aren't really they're not healthy. Like they're dying. Like they're not walking around. And
one good punch should probably take him out.
But more of what we were talking about a second ago, of like the goodbye scenes that really convinced us someone was gonna die. There's more of that when Picard has to part ways from Worf and Riker. When he's like, well, I'm done being the captain. I got to go be the father. And Riker just so good at being Picard's right-hand man this entire season. He's the first dude who Picard went to for help. He's the guy who got Beverly up on the Titan bridge to get Picard, in control of that ship when they were first encountering Vadic in the second episode of the show. And then here, we've all talked about how Picard, he's so he's private and he's closed off, and it's hard for him to open up and emote. And he wants to tell Riker how much he means to him and all this stuff. And, he's struggling to find the words. And Riker just has the perfect right-hand man first officer thing to say to his captain, just, that I know.
Yeah, there were a lot of lines like that really got to me during it, and one or two with Riker and Worf that were both kind of funny and also cool and all that. Like when Worf is like, "Oh wow, for a minute there I thought we might not die today."
And he had his farewell moment with Picard too, and he's just the two turns of phrase a Klingon doesn't admit to: defeat and farewell. I've seen Klingons get defeated and also say goodbye, but
you know what I think that means? It's one of those things that weirdly works. It means they're not a monoculture. It means that they don't and that they're also sometimes not necessarily hypocrites, but that they don't always do exactly what they say or what they aspire to. So I think it kind of actually ends up working.
It's like if The Wrath of Khan came out today when Admiral Kirk says Klingons don't take prisoners, people would be like, oh my God, how is Nicholas Meyer such an idiot? Has he never seen Errand of Mercy? The Klingons were introduced taking hostages in their very first episode. But
Father, I like your intense
people
fan
did
there.
say that. Yeah. They just said that in Starlog and letters and slower things. People did actually say that. I remember that.
Yeah, that's true.
But in these goodbye moments, there's I guess another one too. There's a third one in this scene when Picard talks to Beverly back on the Enterprise. She's over there working, trying to locate Jack, scan for Jack, get Picard as close to Jack as possible. And he gives her forgiveness. He tells her, you did everything right. You kept them safe.
I think that's, that aside from being, I think, a pretty well scripted scene, I don't think it's not going to resolve whether fans are okay with her choices or not, but it does resolve it for the characters.
Yeah,
there will be
he's
no
okay
question.
with it. He's okay with it.
And I think that was I think that was good scripting. I like that.
And it was good acting too. I love seeing her reaction to it, what that meant to her.
Yeah, they do a lot of silent acting, a lot of facial acting and stuff in this episode. Man, Patrick Stewart, when he sees the Enterprise at the end, I kind of, regardless of whether or not that decision was the best decision to rename.
I know exactly what you mean, though, Dave.
But Picard, or Patrick Stewart, man, he came through. He came through there.
Well, he tries to come through for his son. He wanders down to the cube. He finds his boy Jack has been converted into Vox, and very very similar to what Picard had experienced. So it's all very traumatic stuff. This is why I was telling people it's got to be the Borg, right? Nothing else would make sense for his final bad guy. And here it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him in his life. He's now having to face it again to save his son from that same experience.
Sorry, I just got distracted looking at the comments. Joel in the thing says the red door of Jack's dreams was the red door of the red spot of Jupiter, and I was like, that
makes sense.
Oh,
had not thought about
Never
that.
thought about that. Yeah.
But I think that's
a spot
probably
and a door aren't really the same. I mean, they're
Well, but
both
it's-
red, so okay.
But it's a
Mhm.
no.
It's
but
a
the portal
visual
is a
marker,
door.
though.
It's a,
okay.
yeah.
It allowed them
transwarp conduit as a door. You're right, Aaron. So yes,
it allowed them to not do the Borg green and still have some
Mhm.
color connection there.
Yeah.
And that
whether-
same
I like
color,
that.
like that red, orangey, gassy color. That's kind of like the cloud that the Unicomplex was in Voyager. So maybe there was already like a transwarp conduit to that was like Jupiter gas. That was like leaking through the conduit or something. Like maybe they already had like they were already planning on like going to Jupiter or something.
Yeah, that would sort of make some sense.
So Dave, we talked a lot last week about the Queen's face. We were saying like well, Alice Krieger probably doesn't want the prosthetics. That's why they got like this body double to play her and stuff. And you were talking about like it's odd like not to reveal the face in that episode. So we get the reveal here. I think it was just meant to be like, oh look, this was the scary face that Vadic was talking to all along, and the neurolytic pathogen that Janeway poisoned the Queen with back in the last episode of Voyager. Like this is what it did. Like Janeway fucked up the Queen hard.
She did.
She looks so creepy, and I was like, oh god, how is she creepier?
It looks like a Borg that like melted into its circuitry and parts and stuff.
Yeah, and the way that they show it, the way that it was shot in the episode, like for a long time you don't get like a good look, but there's kind of like lights flashing, like almost like lightning will like light up her face for like a brief second, and like that makes it creepier because your brain can't process the whole thing.
It makes sense for them to have waited until this moment so they could go ahead and have the, I didn't necessarily think that Picard was going to be down like or within a cube, going face to face with her. So I was like, well, his son is seeing her. Why are they not showing it? But it's because, of course, they know there will be a total confrontation.
And I think it makes sense because Picard knows like what she should look like.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the audience too. So they introduce the voice first, and then you see the face. But they fooled a lot of people into thinking Jeffrey Hunter was sitting in that chair in the Menagerie parts 1 and 2. It was actually a totally different actor, but they just his face got injured and now he looks like this. People were like, I guess it's the same dude.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I just knew too much about TV production. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, obviously they couldn't get him back. And that's like hype that.
Yeah, well, audiences were a lot dumber in the 60s. They hadn't. No, people hadn't been, watching television for decades and talking about it and reading about it. So it's a lot harder to trick people these days.
Lower media literacy.
People weren't reading TV tropes for fun.
Yes. And I remember Ron Moore said this on a BSG commentary about the Star Trek writer Ron Moore. He said one time, people always talk about like audiences are so dumb, and I hear all these other writers talk about like we got to spell it out, we got to make sure it's like clear and everything, and like sure you have to have that clarity, but audiences are actually like really smart, and it's your job as a writer to trick them, to fool them.
Right.
And if you watch like Ron Moore's material, like some of it's better than other parts, but he definitely approaches it with that mentality. So I guess
we also learned that the starbase is very, very, very strong.
It is, yeah. It lasts for a while.
Or the ships are very weak.
I did think about that a little bit, and at first I was like, "Come on, this is there's like a long time that like the full fleet is firing on them in concentrated effort." But I sort of like the second time I watched it, it felt more appropriate in my mind because I'm like, all right, if Earth has this place of importance, if it is the heart,
right.
And there's going to be one thing that might need to defend against, at least hold the line for a little while against a fleet. That sort of makes some sense.
And it does mess up some of these ships. Like we see some of the ships getting it's just like there's so many. There's 269, I think. And when we see like Seven and Raffi, when they're like dropping the shields with the prefix codes and stuff, there are ships getting blown up by space dock. It just there's just too many. But poor space dock. Also, what's the actress who plays Crash LaForge? Ashley Chestnut, something, right? I saw she posted on Twitter that in the scary shot where she's on the bridge when they're all Borgified, she's saying like, if you notice, I'm actually sitting on like the very edge of that chair because I'm so short, my feet would be dangling if I didn't.
Aw, that's adorable.
Ashley Sharp Chestnut.
Ashley Sharp.
I think she
Chestnut.
said she's like Borgs were less intimidating if their feet are dangling.
Yeah. If you see their cute little leggies swinging back and forth.
Yep, that is a correct assessment.
But you know what was cool was
that short in person though. That's the weird thing. It was like, okay, good.
Yeah, they made these chairs
she
for
sat
tall
next
people.
to us. Which is not
I mean, I think
flexing,
Todd's
just
like, I imagine Todd's Dashbook is probably pretty tall. His design probably
He's
with
pretty
like
tall.
that in mind.
And well, and we all know that was Michelle Hurd's chair, so that's
Yeah.
they're probably thinking like what for her,
That's true.
but
I have sat like I'm not short, but I've sat in like chairs meant that were designed for tall men, and it's like I was like, what the hell is this?
When Seven and Raffi stormed the bridge with the portable weaponized transporter guns, I thought that was a neat idea.
And I like, I like the like. I was like, oh, in my head, I was like, oh, this is what leads to Discovery.
Oh, the transporters in the far-flung future.
Done that before.
Yeah,
well, I can't remember what it was, but
I'm sure this is one of those things that we're not going to exactly see become commonplace tech. But I did like that. I like when the Trek people go out of their way to try and find non-fatal ways to beat their foes, and that's and of course that's especially meaningful if they're these crew members who've already been terrorized by Vadic and they've gone through a lot. So yeah, I was happy that this episode was kind of merciful towards them.
We get a enlisted man uniform. That's what that Cook was wearing, right? Because it's like gray or white. There's like that's kind of what they did in the movies though, with like the cadets and the enlisted people, where they have like the it's similar to a Monster Maroon kinda, but it was like gray or white at the top. I guess you see a lot of them in Wrath of Khan, but they're in all of those TOS movies, or the ones that have the Monster Maroon uniforms. But
poor guy with his sick mom, and
Seven exercises her command speechifying to the crew at that point, and gets this guy who's pretty shaken to get himself together.
He does some cool piloting. We see the Titan. Like, we didn't know it at the time, but we're actually watching Captain 7 on the Enterprise. We think we're watching Commander 7 on the Titan, but no, this is an Enterprise captain kicking ass.
I think I saw Jill in the comments saying she wasn't quite sure what Seven's plan was, but I think that I seem to remember it was fairly straightforward, that it was just a slow down the fleet, distract them from the attacking the
she knew
space
she was
dock.
aware. She became aware of Picard was doing something, and she was like, let's just slow them down so they can do whatever they're doing.
They're like, okay, for whatever reason, these old geezers went and got in their old ass Enterprise, and they're doing something at Jupiter. I hope they have some clue what the hell they're doing. But
those shots, by the way, of them doing the strafing runs, those did look really cool. There's a lot of one of those scenes that had very high energy.
Yeah,
They're the line of sight thing doesn't make a lot of sense, but okay.
What's the line of sight thing?
Well, I can kind of see it if the sensors can't find them.
Yeah, but like, what happens if you go and like if this is their plan, and this was back with the what is it, the fleet formation? If this is actually happening, say for good reason, like this is what they actually plan on using, and a ship flew between you and something else, or the other part of the fleet, or an asteroid, or whatever, it's like you would just lose that. It was like, so it shouldn't be line of sight. That seems.
Later on, she mentions that they're using like predictive models to figure out where they are. So they do. I guess the fleet gets better at finding them.
And I like that there is like they mentioned some of like the tactical things they're doing, like the cloaking device, and we can't fire while cloaked, so we'll uncloak for a little bit, shoot, then cloak again, and we're using the prefix codes to take people's shields down.
Taking the Defiant, that had a shield too, or cloaking device.
Not that Defiant.
Not that Defiant.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Sorry, God. Never mind.
I just saw in the chat. I think it might have been Mika Burden who said that about being super short. Jamie Mack, which makes sense because I think she is the shorter of the two of them.
Okay, that makes more sense because I was like, she didn't seem short in real life, so I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad.
I don't remember seeing her sitting down as a Borg, but I guess she did at some point.
I think she did. I think there might have been the three of them at this.
Yeah, like on that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. They've now taken over. Like, what is it when they were talking about unsanctioned movement or whatever? I think they were all.
On deck 5, because that's where 7 was. Oh yeah, I guess that's her on the other side. Okay.
Yep.
Is she
I have to say
that would make that's kind of like thematically appropriate because she's the younger.
What's that? What's
Alondra's younger than Sydney. So it would kind of like, make her stand out as like little sister if she's shorter. I know like there's no reason why a little sister can't be the taller one, but
the cook,
when they're all grown. But
I don't know why. Like in Star Trek, but probably not. Somebody would have called it out by now.
Yeah. There is a familiar face on the Titan here, but it's not the cook. It's another dude. Yeah. But I'll point that out in the Gorn eggs. The cities that are targeted after space dock falls. I noticed like there's a target somewhere in Texas, probably Houston, but
I would guess Houston or Dallas.
Whenever there's like
Austin.
like shots like this, like whatever.
Not that big.
Whenever you're seeing like I don't know, like nukes are targeting cities or something, I think it's always like funny to see like, oh, what are they actually like targeting? But it was they listed off Berlin, Cairo, Philadelphia, Rome, San Francisco, Paris, Sao Paulo, New York.
I feel like only in Star Trek would they make a point, would anyone be like, yeah, we have to target San Francisco.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Although I'm now remembering this was years and years ago when North Korea was just like, we're going to target these cities, and Austin was one of them, and we were all like, why us? Like,
what did we do?
You know what's weird is like I was reading I used to read a lot more comics than I read now, and like one month I went to my local store that Dave works at, and I bought like a bunch of the comics they were holding for me in my file, and there were like in the course of like a month there were like 3 or 4 different comics where the city of Austin, Texas was destroyed. Like it happened in like in Bendis's Age of Ultron comic. It happened in the God's Not Dead, like issue 1. It has like Austin is destroyed by like one of the gods. It was weird. It was like a bunch of people at the same time. We're like,
I don't know what the God's Not Dead comic is, but if it's anything like that movie, it's because we're a bunch of liberals.
No, maybe it's called God is Dead. I don't remember the name of that.
Yeah, it is not the Kevin Sorbo-y series.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm talking. For the record, I've not seen that movie.
I've watched a few really entertaining videos that have analyzed and destroyed those movies.
I have seen some of them because they are a fun thing to drink during, and that would also make the creators of it mad. So,
you know what I think though is that writers like to visit Austin, and they like our breakfast tacos and like to hang out here and have some barbecue and stuff and all that, and so I think it's a matter of fondness to throw Austin in as a nod to like, hey, to my buddies in Austin, I blew you up.
They blew up our comic book store in one Marvel thing.
Nice.
Yeah, Golden Apple sign goes flying.
Mark
away.
Boyd in the live audience is yelling out Lockhart. Are you in Lockhart, Texas, Mark? That's where the best barbecue is. Just up 183 from here. But enough Texas geography. Let's talk about this cloaking device. The LaForge sisters destroy the cloaking device that they helped their dad install.
I loved that, but hated it. I was like, oh
yeah.
But it shows, these Borg are smart. Okay, we got them in the transporter room. Oh, they escaped. Oh, they went after our cloaking device because they actually like know what they're doing and they're a legitimate threat and they're going to be hard to contain. So I thought that was neat. But yeah, ultimately, Seven and Raffi they're not able to maintain control of the Titan. The Borg kids come to retake the bridge right when the big climactic action kicks off. So let's talk about the big shit we get here. Starting with Riker and Worf Borg fighting. My inner 12-year-old ultimately like my inner 12-year-old who's like, oh, Spock can't be my favorite Star Trek character anymore because Worf is so freaking badass when he says assimilate this and then blows up Borg with a phaser rifle. Like that 12-year-old father, he just like lit the fuck up when I saw Worf and Riker fight these Borg. And I feel dumb for saying this because there's like really good moments in this episode, but like my 2 favorite moments are both Worf moments because I love Worf that much. But the sword being so heavy when Riker's like, shit, I didn't know it was that heavy. I love that. And then there's another one later with the
Also,
hug with
he had a
Raffi.
phaser the whole time.
Yeah, well, swords
Yeah.
are fun.
Yeah.
You talking about? You said later the scene with him,
Ra-
with Raffi fathering.
Yeah,
Yeah, that scene was great.
Two
That's-
good scenes.
that's my
Mhm.
favorite thing of the entire episode. Is Worf and
interesting.
Raffi.
You know, I don't know. I kind of hadn't
I-
thought about it in that context, but I actually think I ended up, at least on second viewing, for reasons I'll get into a little bit more when we get to the scene of like it was the Picard and Son stuff. It was Jack and Picard.
The Jack and Picard stuff is up there for me, but there's one which we'll get to eventually. There's one thing that I think is my favorite moment.
I have one that every time I see it, I'm like, I start like almost ready to cry or crying. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I know it, Aaron.
The
but
episode
point it
had
out
a
when we
lot
get
of
to it.
those scenes. You know what? The one I don't know if this is the scene, but I'm gonna guess at it. It's one of those lines. You know, it's when Riker's saying his farewell to Deanna, and he thinks that they're gonna die, and he says, "Me and our boy will be waiting."
that was it.
Yeah.
That's my favorite scene. Also, their love saves the day, and that makes 13-year-old me, who shipped the hell out of them, very happy. Like,
Yeah, they did
I
some great
do-
stuff, and I also like that Deanna got to rise to the situation there.
yeah,
I know her power is not exactly a demonstrative power for an action-adventure story, and sometimes they got to like finesse it a little bit, but she managed to get to do some stuff that was over the course of this
Also,
whole series.
she
That was
Her and Beverly both got to do
Yeah.
cool
she
shit.
got to
there.
do counselor shit, and then she also got to do I'm gonna save our ass shit.
Also, she flies the ship well. The ship could not have been saved in generations.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Right, yeah, that is a joke that needs to be retired.
Mhm.
But we should, by the way, say, speaking of flying the ship well, shooting well was Crusher's thing.
Yeah.
that was a fun scene. It was a very action adventure-y trope.
I
but
love that they're like,
I liked
what
it.
the hell happened to you?
They
that was
really
a great.
Yeah.
It's been a
comic
long 20
timing.
years.
They really
Yeah.
put a lot of thought into making sure everyone had something cool to do here.
They
which
did.
They didn't
Mhm.
always
Yeah.
do in Star Trek, and I love the original series so much, but they definitely didn't keep that in mind. And
Oh,
no. The TNG movies definitely didn't keep it in mind. So honestly, I got to give like the Kelvin movies credit for that more than anyone else. Is like, remember like watching
you're
Star
right.
Trek Beyond, like when they're all on the Franklin, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like everyone has something meaningful to do. It's like the Star Trek should follow this pattern more often.
It's like the animated
going
series
forward.
almost.
Mhm.
Yeah, like they were giving people Uhura specifically more
Yeah.
stuff to do, and we got to see
And
her
these-
actually command the ship.
These were really well
I love-
staged moments too. I loved the comic timing of everybody on the bridge doing this slow turn to Beverly. Like,
Yeah. That was perfect.
The
Man.
chemistry
Also,
is
Marina
so,
Sirtis' space acting was like on point. Just like I
She's-
believe that she was getting thrown around in that chair.
and they don't make they don't really put like an exclamation point on it, but it's a big deal for Beverly when they're like, hey, if we blow up the Beacon, we're gonna blow up the cube. And she's actually like willing to like possibly blow up not just Jean-Luc but her son, like their kid also.
God,
yeah,
Like, I think
again, another
I-
case of great.
poor Beverly. Like,
This
Yeah.
season of Star Trek has done, I think, the best with silent moments, and
mhm.
just that's what, like better than any other Star Trek that I've seen. They've say so much in like just looks.
It's like one of
And-
those. They all of a sudden remembered that like they had good actors. That they
Yeah,
like.
exactly.
Right.
that they like.
Yeah, and their chemistry is so
Yeah.
undeniable.
Built up over decades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think you could have done this back. Like even if you let them do that, it would be like, yeah, okay.
It would
You know
be,
what's
yeah, definitely
interesting?
It'd be
different.
soap opera-ish back then. I
Yeah.
think.
Right. It occurs to me that in a way we kind of don't like. Do we know that do Picard and Crusher particularly get back together, or is it?
No, like nothing's shown on screen. It's open for interpretation. If you want
I
to
think
believe
it's supposed. I think it's supposed
Yeah.
to be vague.
if you want
Right.
to believe that they're married and live happily ever after, cool. If you want to believe that he does eventually get to that bar with Loris, where she's waiting
Poor
on him.
Lara.
Oh yeah. I thought they would at least show that, but
Yeah.
it makes sense. They had to clear the deck. But anyway,
Or
what I was
maybe
gonna say is
the three of them
That's
might
like the-
form a polycule. We don't know. Like,
That's
It's-
the
Good
fifth
for them.
ending that for the deleted scenes where it's just
my
more credits and it's just her sitting there at the bar like,
Aw.
with her head and like, you know.
But What I was going to say is, although it would be hard to have her appear after 20 years and think, oh yeah, they just went back to things like nothing ever happened. But at the very least, they have trauma bonded so hard over the events of this. You're talking about all the stuff that she had to go through, Father, that I was like, I could buy them almost being like platonic life partners,
right?
And like even sharing a house together or something like that, even if they weren't intimate. At this point.
Yeah, I think I can, especially what we know of All Good Things when we see them there, and Picard and Beverly are like, oh yeah, like we tried the marriage, it didn't work out, and we got divorced. And I feel like they don't. It's kind of irrelevant, like if they have like the romantic relationship or not.
I agree.
Like they're bonded by something bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because I don't think any of us went into this season remotely expecting that. It was kind of like we were all like, oh, well, who will Picard end up with? This is clearly that was something of the thrust of the second season. And so I think it's natural that we might have wondered about that. But yeah, that's not what it was about at all.
Because I would say at this point, I don't know if they're romantically together, but they're definitely like a family with Jack. Whether that like
when
their
they
mom
were
and
flying,
dad.
When they were flying at the end, it felt like a family together.
Well, but you can be a family, like you can have like two parents that like.
Oh yeah, they definitely
share a kid, but they're not. They're not.
They definitely they could be. I don't know if they're just co-parents. I don't know if they're romantically like related.
Maybe they're friends with benefits.
That seems like a bad idea for them, but you know, it's their life.
A lot of the stuff though is so reminiscent of the other Star franchise. I'm thinking Return of the Jedi, and you know that big. I know that Terry is an old school Star Wars fan as well, so he might have at least on a subconscious level been thinking of Return of the Jedi, or maybe on a conscious level. But having to like send like the big iconic ship like the Millennium Falcon into the center of the Death Star to blow it up, and
I suppose because Star Trek really hasn't done that before. That was 1983. It was a little ways back. I thought I actually didn't think about it. Normally, I'm like real quick to jump to that stuff.
Even when like the editing is like cutting back and forth from that to also this this father and son struggle in like this dark room with like a creepy evil monarch lording over them.
You would think I would have, but I didn't.
Maybe it's been too long since I watched Return of the Jedi. Is what I'm like realizing.
When somebody said that, I'm like, what? Oh yeah, and then I remembered.
Yeah, no, it's very it's like you can draw those parallels easily.
Yeah, it's like the Queen is the Emperor, and Luke and Vader have become Jack and Picard.
But Jack didn't throw the Queen down a hole.
Shaw.
Yeah, but anyway,
we get that by the way, hologram. So
Shaw, we called him the Shawlogram.
Like hologram.
As far as those high energy scenes, Father, some favorite scenes that were like the action more side of things. I did love Data's flight through the thing, and I love the sequence of like he's like, my gut tells me I can do this. I was like, it was dope. It was a cool sequence.
Yeah.
Also, Deanna can read Data. How does it work?
It was weird that she could read him into Descent. I never understood why she read him into Descent Part 2, but she couldn't read Soji in season 1 in the Pinthe. She's like, I can't read you.
That's
You're artificial.
But I do love she's just like, why am I sensing enjoyment? She's just like so
that was great.
And Troy is also, I pointed out last week how she's like a bit more hawkish when she's like telling them like your son is dangerous, there's protocols. Like even here, like she still has like a bit more of that hawk when she's like, I'm sorry, Beverly, but we got to blow up the cube. It's either that or, you know, everyone in the galaxy dies. And it's like, oh, it's because she lost a kid and she still has one other kid alive. And so that's why she's more hawkish now and more vigilant.
John in the chat he's gone now, I think, but he had written that like these short treks with Laris and Kestra doing like a vacation or something where they like nobody remembered them, so they just took off and went somewhere.
Or they could be doing like, I don't know, like the Forrest Gump thing. Like they're actually involved with all like these big important events in season 3 of Picard, but we never like noticed them.
See it.
Yeah. But they're actually like the heroes of the story. They're doing like all the behind the scenes stuff.
I love that my mind went to Lion King 1.5, which is apparently Timon and Pumbaa are there the whole time, just like in the background of everything. Is what that reveals.
The retcon of the Lion King.
Yeah. Well, I heard
they did that with Phineas and Ferb too. They were in all of Star Wars, just in different places.
I once heard it because like The Lion King is based off Hamlet. The Lion King 2 is Romeo and Juliet, and I once heard Lion King 1.5 called oh shoot, what are his Hamlet's friends? Gilderoy. Oh my god.
Those, like
Guildenstern and Rosencrantz.
There's a book
Akira
called
Kurosawa drew inspiration for the
Yeah.
two characters in the Japanese film The Hidden
There's
Fortress.
It became
play
C-3PO and
called,
R2-D2.
Exactly.
Oh my god, what? Someone just say their names again for me.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Rosencrantz and
Yes.
Guildenstern?
There's a book called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, and it's like their point of view, and it's just like hijinks and like
Yeah, it's a play by Tom Stoppard, I think.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
I think all the emotional stuff with like Picard and Jack and Picard being like this isn't real, this isn't perfection, it's death, it's stagnation, and you have to go live, and like I found something to live for, it's you, and I felt all that stuff worked, but it kind of gets overshadowed by some of the other moments, like like Riker being like, I love you, Amzadi, I'll be waiting, me and our boy, and stuff like that.
It's hard to match up to that, but I'll tell you, Father, one of the things that struck me as I was watching it, when you've got a franchise like Star Trek with dozens, hundreds of writers over time, it's hard to tell a fully organic story, but Picard's kind of works out this way. I was remembering from the very first, even before the show started, I read it like this Starlog magazine that said, oh, one of the things about Picard is he doesn't like children. And that was kind of felt like a little bit of a throwaway quirk in season 1, but it was there, and we saw him grow and develop and learn to be more appreciative of
that's
Wesley.
Beautiful, Dave. But
And
look how that book
fair
ends.
though. Oh, sorry.
What's that?
I was just gonna say that was such a big deal in the first episode, and then see how it bookends here.
It ends up bookending it, and then we got to see him in family to bond with Renee, his nephew, and then lose Renee in Generations, but he has always had that seeming yearning for family, even if the writers didn't know where they were headed with it.
Yeah. And also, I would say he loses his family that he has in the inner light. He also loses them.
Right.
Yeah.
So
to be
when
fair,
I was watching
Jack is
it
not
the
really a
second time,
child. He's literally his child, but he's not. I think what Picard had a problem with was kids, which was different than children.
But you could argue that
this
problem with kids was something of a. You could say that even subconsciously that he was fighting against the idea that it might be something he would want. Maybe.
Right.
I certainly don't. I'm not a person who's like, oh yeah, everybody has to have a kid to fulfill them. But does Picard I feel like in some ways the evidence has been building all along kind of quietly. So I sort of. On second viewing, at least, I liked it more than I had the first time.
I think, and especially with, this season's obviously building off of last season of Picard and what's revealed about Picard's family background. You're like, oh, because he was always concerned he wouldn't be a good father.
Right. Yeah, that, and they've built some stuff back into it through that makes it work even better.
The Borg Queen looks so creepy there. I'm sorry, I just looked up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she's mad at the end when
I'm coming for you, Rachel.
Oh God.
She does die, talking some shit to Jack when she says, you'll be changed, you'll be different. I don't know if that's something that they will use in the future, if he's got more Borg weirdness now after this experience. Probably does. We saw, Picard was Locutus for 47 minutes, and we saw what that did to him. So I think Jack will have
it was
similar
more than 40.
baggage.
I think the Battle of Wolf 359 lasted longer than 45 minutes.
Father, he's like, it's 47 minutes.
when Picard was in with Jack, it's I'll stay with you forever. He'd be like, nope. Just like I don't want to be here forever with my dad. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't.
But I did love that scene.
That's what got him out of the Borg thing.
Yeah.
I like that Picard was willing to, he's like, if this is how it's gonna be, then I'll die with you too.
And Jack does tell the Queen. He says this is the end of the Borg. So I think this should probably be the end for now. For the most part of the bad guy. I know that they're mentioned in the 32nd Century and Discovery, but I think they might have just been talking about the Girardi Borg, or it was unknown. It's they're like, who could this be? Possibly the Borg. So it might not have been.
I thought the Girardi Borg was a cool plot point, and so I would like to see a show. I would like to see Star Trek Legacy
Yeah, move
touch on
forward
that.
with them. Those are the Borg, the
Not a prime
benevolent
plot
collective.
point, but yeah, bring them back in at some point. Let's find out more about the what do they call them, XBs, and and some other, and how that's happening, and how they interact with the reformed Borg and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be. They could go to the planet that the cube crashed on in season 1, and like Girardi's people can hang out with those XB people there, and
yeah,
I'd like to see that.
Okay, sorry.
What do you got?
I was gonna say, there's just a heads up. There's a recording error popped up on my screen, so I don't know if that's everybody or just me or what. But
we'll just hope for the best.
Yeah, this might be going into the ether.
We do have a super chat in the live audience from Sledge GE2, who says that scene with Picard. I'm sorry, that scene when Picard hugs Jack made me have a little bit of feels. It reminded me of getting a hug from my dad.
Oh.
No.
A few episodes back, I said I was disappointed that Geordi and Data didn't hug. And I realized that, if nothing else, I feel like there's maybe a reason to have held out on characters really embracing, like, too much, like some of our big iconic heroes, because they needed this scene to have the most punch. It had to be this scene.
Yeah, there also might have been like some hesitation because people complain on Discovery that the characters hug too often. But I do have to admit, like it is I guess more it is more powerful when you build up to it.
This was filmed like
bit.
fully during COVID, right?
This would have been shot.
Season 2 definitely was.
Yeah.
This was all shot in like early last year.
So there might have been some trepidation still of you don't want to have to get them like actors super close together for like every shot.
True.
I'm assuming that they were like they sheltered together. What am I trying to say?
Probably.
Like they created a pod where they, it wouldn't matter after like 2 weeks.
Well, there was a whole thing where I'm sure this came in for 7 and Raffi last season. I saw it on other shows too, where like characters just stopped kissing each other.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of I think analysis of the film and entertainment of this era, and what was shown and what wasn't, and just and just how that affected entertainment too, and sort of it'll be interesting. I did, by the way,
to watch like crowd scenes when no one was going outside.
It was
I don't really want to watch this.
Yeah. I did enjoy the cavalry of the Enterprise showing up.
That was such a cool way to show it. Like I talk about this design a lot. Like, I don't like the. I've never been a fan of the Galaxy class, but yeah, it was so cool the way that they used it and showed it off. And like it felt like such a victory when they're smiling. They're free of the Queen, and they look up and they see the massive heroic Enterprise, coming to
we
save
get the old
them.
transporter effect.
It being in a Borg cube, I was like, this is so cool. This is when I'm talking about like I'm the fan being serviced.
And I love that the Queen witnesses her demise. Like she knows that it's coming, that it's happening. Unlike Khan in the Wrath of Khan, when Khan is detonating the Genesis device, he thinks he's killing Kirk. He thinks he's killing Spock, the Enterprise. I guess he does kill Spock, but everyone on the Enterprise, he doesn't taste defeat. He dies a happy man, or is the closest thing to happy that Khan could have. The Queen, a total opposite. She's like, wow, everything I've ever cared about has been destroyed, and now I will die.
It's these emulate the kind of action adventure tropes of the movies, and inside that trope stuff, that I kind of like. I like the bad guys getting served up.
Yeah, it's very satisfying.
It's I'm all for it, even though I also like the reformed Borg and stuff too.
But it doesn't interfere. If anything, it just it gives them a greater likelihood to be important in the future story.
I really like that they actually did give the Galaxy class the ability to kind of like, we knew it could do that. It's just it would be harder to have shot back in the 90s.
I was genuinely surprised we didn't end up seeing a saucer separation.
Saucer separation? Yeah, that
I
was
know,
the other thing.
that's something I predicted. It did not happen.
Yep.
Thank God.
But they did color the saucer a little darker than the star drive because it got burnt up when it crashed.
Right.
On
They did a
Viridian
lot
3.
of detail on that. Yeah,
Before.
it's.
This scene.
What do you think of
I
the
also...
Ross class, Fathery?
Oh yeah.
I love the Ross
Which
class.
is it's evolution of the galaxy.
Yeah, it's like if the galaxy was good, it'd be
I
a
also-
Ross.
Don't hate now, Fathery. It's the wrong time. It's happy time.
I was listening. I loved this scene because when it like completely, they build enough that it completely made sense that one, Sydney would be the most emotional about the fact that she was holding a phaser at 7 because
Yeah.
of those characters, I think she was the closest to 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like 7 hugging her, it was so good.
It's been cool to see Seven's journey, and
Is
I like, you see stuff like that, and you're like,
It like
she is ready to be the captain.
it like really reminded me of like, I think B'Elanna actually hugs Janeway, but like there's that scene where B'Elanna and Janeway hug, and it really reminded me of that. And in my head, I was like connected those because I'm like, well, Janeway's her mentor, and you know.
Yeah.
Is this the first time that Seven has cried since that one time where they said, "Oh, you can't cry because you'll blow up," essentially, from your Borg implant?
No, she
Which I'm
cried
sure
in
they
season
fixed.
1 when Icheb died.
Did she? Oh, that's right. Okay.
I've just assumed that when they got back to the Alpha Quadrant, they were like, "Hey, can we work on that?"
Yeah. No,
Like,
I
yeah.
agree. But it was like, oh wait, that's kind of interesting. But no, you're right.
But it's not. She's not like a big crier.
You know what's interesting about 7 is that my favorite characters in all of Star Trek, or at least like the 3 big ones from when I was younger, Spock, Worf, and 7. I guess the jury's still out on Worf. We don't know exactly. We know he was on the Enterprise E when it went down. He may or may not have been in command of it, but it's kind of implied that he was. All 3 of my favorite characters become captains of the Enterprise: Spock, Worf, and 7.
Interesting.
That's cool.
That's your brain's secret criteria.
I guess, yeah, I was picking the right people, I guess.
So how
love
what do you
it.
think
It
about
has to be-
Harriman?
He was never a favorite. But
I will always be there to stand up for Harriman.
I
Borg
would
totally
feel...
ruined Frontier Day forever, but also they ruined a few years ago First Contact Day too. So like they're not going to have any really good celebration.
yeah,
They
they're about
like...
to come for Christmas next, but
yeah,
that will be the Star Trek Christmas special. This is like the Borg have returned to ruin Christmas. How the Borg stole Christmas. That's going to be the next Alex Kurtzman made for streaming movie event coming to Paramount Plus.
Actually,
with
now
Showtime.
I want that. Oh
Yeah,
my
I kind of do too.
I was just saying, I'll stand up for Harriman too. I'll be with Dave on that.
I'd like to
I
believe
don't
that
have an
Harriman
opinion.
became a better captain. I just hate when they make like a captain just fucking terrible
an
and just
idiot.
suck at
Yeah.
like I just assume Starfleet has like a lot of cool captains, but maybe not. We have some multiple endings to go through, so let's start talking about like our multiple endings. Starting
Yes,
with
the Star Trek Return of the King, if you will.
yeah, but it was the right time to do it. Like
it was the right time. It's the end of like an era of TV, and also
If there was a time.
I can deal with it in something like a TV show or a long running thing like Lord of the Rings was by the time you get to the Return of the King.
Sure.
It was fun seeing Jack on the bridge of the Enterprise with his mom and dad, though, just being like, oh yeah, this is where y'all hung out in the 80s when y'all, I guess they didn't meet on the Enterprise, they knew each other, but you know, like y'all used to work together.
It felt like home to us, the viewers,
yeah.
And it felt like home to I'm sure to Picard. And
I do wish Seven was able to be there. I wanted to see her on the bridge of the Enterprise.
She was there in the photo shoot, so they got the publicity.
She's an interloper. That's a Voyager character. Take her away.
It also is kind of like, yeah, this bridge didn't exist. You might not exist, Jack.
There's Aaron has the actual art, or the actual photography that has her
one?
there.
Yeah, poster thingy.
I know there was also a photo that Stashwick posted, and he's like with them, and I was like, did you just sneak on set to go see this like that? Because I appreciate that.
I mean, I would.
I would.
Yeah.
Well, I saw like Todd Stashwick post a picture of himself sitting in Picard's chair, and it's like, hey, he sat in my captain's chair, you know.
Yeah. And the cool thing about having the set built in I guess LA last year when they were shooting this is that they've kept this. They've taken it down, but I guess they built it with the intention of being able to disassemble it and
yes,
throw it in
someone finally
storage.
did something right with a set.
Yes, so they can bust out the Galaxy class bridge.
They disassembled it in a way that they can use it still.
And
yeah, that's good.
Alex Kurtzman is more of a TNG guy than the other shows. Like I remember, like when Star Trek 09 was coming out, he was like, I wasn't as big of a fan of the original series as I was TNG. That was more my Star Trek. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have something that shows this off. And something, I don't know what it would be, but I doubt we've seen the last of it. I'll put it that way.
I like Worf's little nap.
It's when Discovery goes off the air. It turns out that it was just a hologram from the Next Generation. A holodeck.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
That's the new.
They take all the endings.
Yeah. But yeah, Worf passed out in the chair. That made me laugh out loud. That was pretty good because it felt like a real.
I was like,
thing.
"Oh, is he meditating?" No.
It felt like this old dude. He's tired, had a big day. It's just couldn't help it. Sometimes that happens. It's a little embarrassing, but what are you gonna do?
And also, I've always thought Klingons age faster, so he might be like physically older than everybody else.
And
he also got shot by the Borg.
Yeah, so I heard someone say, wouldn't it have been funny if you did like a fan edit of this and like you muted the snoring, and so when they like look over at him, it's just like, oh, like he just died. He died in the chair from his injury.
Yeah, like play some sad music, but Geordi's like.
Well, no, they'd be like, I guess he got what he always wanted. He died with honor, so good for him. I guess this was his happy ending. Then they weakened and Bernie's him into the poker game. That might be a bit much.
But no, that was fun.
Trek, a long week.
Trek can be pretty good with humor, and they got some good laughs in this throughout the whole season. But it was nice that they also had some.
I mean, Michael Dorn's the funniest of them. Like rewatching TNG, I was like, "Oh, Worf's comedic timing is on point."
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they reflected the Worf humor here. I think they did like good stuff with that in Deep Space Nine. I think that
they refined it there.
Yeah.
Worf got funnier with Jadzia. Like I kind of wish that they had mentioned her at some point in the show because I see her fingerprints all over Worf's personality all these years later.
Or Alexander. They know Alexander. It seems like something they'd bring up.
I like Jadzia more than Alexander, though.
Of course you do. Like everyone does.
That's
not the point.
They were just keeping the characters to a minimum for the big finale. That's all. It makes sense.
I don't even I'm not expecting Alexander or especially Jadzia to show up. Just like, hey, remember that Worf was married?
Yeah.
None of you went to the wedding, so maybe you
I almost thought that like when they were like preparing to die, when Worf and Riker think it's really the end. I was almost thinking like, oh, it would have been cool if he said something about Jadzia, but then that would have ruined Riker's moment. I
get why they didn't because they needed that and to have that go right to Deanna.
So maybe like Riker says that, and then Worf is just like, "You son of a bitch! I was just about to say something about my wife, but you stepped on my moment."
In 100%, you knew that he meant to do the threesome line. That was not an accidental phrase. That
would be weird if Worf doesn't. I get that he's an alien, but he grew up on Earth. He should know what the word threesome means.
He was married to Jadzia. Of course he knows what that means.
Yeah, no, that was Worf trying to.
They were on Risa.
He was trying to bring a little levity.
I don't think he'd be a group sex guy. I think he'd
I don't think he'd be into it. Like that's
I think he'd be a sex guy. Period. Sometimes it seems like.
I think it's
an episode where they were on Risa.
I just want to point out that Joel said "weekend at Worf's," and that is.
That's awful. Jokes about dead Worf. Y'all are terrible people.
Well, what isn't terrible is that Dr. Crusher now has returned to where she was in season 2 of TNG as head of Starfleet Medical. But now she's at the rank of admiral, and she can cure the Borg DNA from all of the young Starfleet officers, so they fixed that conveniently with the. And she also is able to round up all the changelings. She had figured out how to detect them by scanning for like that one chemical that they all have in their bodies. So,
because I was talking to someone like, how'd you get promoted so fast? My theory is that the previous head of Starfleet Medical was a changeling.
Hey, do you want your kids deborgified and the changelings rounded up?
Right.
All right, give me that job at Starfleet Medical.
You know, she also could have physically or like fired the phasers and photons that would kill them if she had to. That's the new Beverly.
I'm the Admiral
Blazin'
now.
Bev is on it.
She's blazing them phaser beams is what she's doing.
Phase and Bev.
It's real Tuvok instead of Fovok, I think.
Yay!
Yes, we have the real Tuvok, although I think the scene was written with Janeway in mind initially.
Oh, Terry Matalas confirmed that, basically.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I think it works. It works well, and it also keeps the cast
There's also in the
down.
comics, they were like wanting to bring Soji in, and basically they made a draft. They showed it, and the line producer was like, "Absolutely not. We can't afford this."
You know, whenever we do finally see Janeway and Seven together in some form or another, I think I guess I want it to be bigger than a just outro scene to it. You know, so in a way, I'm kind of glad it wasn't her.
I kind of wanted to have like an adventure together.
Yeah, that's what I would like to. And this managed to both show us Tuvok's okay and also see a small reunion for Voyager peoples.
Kate Mulgrew has been having a blast on Prodigy, and she's been very vocal about like she's ready to do something in live action. So we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it soon.
I know that there were issues with Jerry Ryan back in the day. Are they past that?
I think so. So I've always thought it would be, especially now that Jerry is captain of the Enterprise. I think it'd be fun if Janeway could be like her she would be like that Admiral Forrest or Admiral April or Admiral Ross, whatever you want. But, like the guy who like gives the orders to the main character. What Vance is on Discovery. Let Janeway be that for Seven on the Enterprise with wherever
I've always been under the impression that the bad blood that was there is not there anymore, and that they are friendly now.
Yeah, there's like that moment at a convention where like Garrett Wong like got them to like he was like crying like, can you please bury the hatchet, and like they hug each other, and I don't know, maybe it was all performative though. After all, they are a bunch of actors, so
sure but
I do
go ahead.
And my friend in college was one of the people who was just doing kind of like the grunt work, running stuff around and giving people coffee and all that stuff on Voyager. And one night he pulled the short straw essentially, and he had to go deliver a stack of glossy 7 of 9 photos for her to sign while they were still shooting. It was the hoverball. What is it? The racquetball thing that they were playing, Spaceball, whatever it was, Velocity. And it was like 2 a.m, and they were still like around take 19 or something like that. Oh God! And he's like, these have to be done, and she needs to do them. And so he had to be the one who would go in and then watch Kate Mulgrew melt down because it was like, we have to stop so you can sign your pretty pictures, basically. So, but I think that's way past.
A lot of stories I've heard also seem like the people around them didn't do anything to like
help,
or like kind of pitted them against each other in a way.
That's why this felt like that did not need to happen the way that happened. So yes, I totally agree with you.
As someone who's been in spaces where they make women compete against each other and have to like actively fight against it, sometimes it's hard. Like if you're like being pitted against each other.
Actually, if only for those two people, I hope that they have been able to do it. I don't know whether they appear as alongside each other or not. But I see, Father, you have pulled up Shaw's image here. He gets his final moment in a
hologram.
Yeah, speaking of 7 of 9 having bad blood with former captains, I think they clear some of that up with Shaw with his post-humanist. How do you say that word? Like post when you're after you're dead.
Posthumous.
Posthumous. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Opossum, whatever. Shaw recommending 7 for a promotion and transfer to her own command.
I think they made this clear, and I just missed this. When did he record this?
Right before their mission to the Righton system. So right before the first episode, basically.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I assumed it was later in the thing when he had been drawn into the adventure and maybe had some time to think about things. No,
that's what I like. Well, because I was also thinking, I was like, he looks pretty put together because he got
No bruises or blood yet.
Yeah, the shit beat out of it throughout the season.
I thought it was
And he
cool,
called her
though,
7
like,
of 9, which was interesting. Then
Yeah,
decided
so-
not to later.
he always,
But that is the only. Oh, sorry.
but yeah, I guess he always figured that was like the right name for her, but just like he couldn't bring himself to say call someone a Borg designation.
Yeah.
Until
Well,
the
even
very
in
end.
his that's his baggage. Was his baggage.
And it seems like here he's like admitting like I know I'm wrong to be doing this, and I'm like trying to work on it, and it's.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like a little bit of a confessional for him. But he's also arguably a little passive aggressive. He's like, yeah, she's a trash cadet or whatever, but she's got the stuff.
Yeah, I think he probably requested her on his ship because he was probably like, why the hell are we letting an XB into Starfleet? I need to keep an eye on her. And then after a year, he's like, oh, well, she's she has a very different command style than me. I don't want her on my ship or anywhere close to my ship, but she is a major net positive for Starfleet.
I mean, but there is something where it's like two people are like, oh, she's good at her job. We just don't work well together.
Well, when Picard and Riker first show up with their wacky scheme to go on tour or whatever, actually, to tour the ship, go on tour is a different thing.
Just like a tour.
That's only marginally worse than their actual plan. but it's
Tarmac
like,
and Jalad.
So we got all these instruments, and you're just gonna hop us around to different planets. It's gonna be great.
That's what they wanted to do in Enterprise.
It seemed like Shaw and Seven were getting along decently, kind of before the shit hit the fan, and she had to join their wacky scheme. So
I don't know. She did not speak well of him.
Well, she didn't like him, but it seemed like he respected her more and was just treating her more as a normal bridge crewman, even if it wasn't a valued counsel for him. But yeah, like I think things got worse because he's like, oh, you're hanging around with these crazy mavericks.
After the Seven and Tuvok scene, we get the Worf and Raffi scene, which I said was
sweet.
my favorite moment of the episode. This is the only time I think I cried watching the episode, but
I cried like 4 times.
I cried many times.
It started and didn't stop for a while.
Again, there was a time like that. I've also, my allergies are really bad, so my eyes are in a state of water anyway.
You don't need to.
no.
You don't need to excuse it. It's okay.
I know my eyes are watery right now for no reason.
I just
the reason
expecting...
is Texas.
Yeah. Central Texas is the allergy capital of the world. It seems. In addition to Austin being the live music capital of the world.
Not really.
I think ours is going to be pretty bad this year too because of all the rain that we had. So everything's growing.
I also like Worf being like, yeah, Raffi's fucking family. Here's some proof that y'all been being shitty to her.
It's cool that she has been there for every season of Picard. And I like that she like really became part of the family, not just of Picard, not just an ally of his, but close to the TNG crew, a valuable asset to the whole big final run. And now she gets her spot on the new Enterprise too.
And I had no idea that because they had like this recurring joke of like Worf getting uncomfortable when people hug him. I had no idea that they're like setting it up for something big here. But yeah, like when he hugs Raffi, it's like, oh wow, like the guy who hated hugs, it's it is kind of a big deal.
They had special warrior bond thing.
And that line from him about tears being the body's weapon against pain. That's a great way to frame that, very Klingon way. And then he's like, but since I have never wept, I wouldn't know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Worf still got a little toxicity possibly in there, but I love it.
Did you also the clip of her granddaughter is like the same video that we've seen over and over and over again. It's like the girl doesn't age; she has the same clothes.
They shot that girl one time, one day, and that's all the footage they have.
That's all we get. Yeah.
I've seen it before in shows. And I'm like, okay, kids are hard to direct. Let's just continue.
No, I get it. I just thought it was funny. I'm just like, oh, we've seen that.
Then we see
I think my daughter's a hologram, or my granddaughter's a hologram.
Yeah, she never ages or changes clothes. Yeah. She's an AI generated image with like 8 fingers on one hand.
Oh God.
I want these chairs, by the way. I like the pattern on them.
Yeah, the
cool.
chairs and the therapy room on the Titan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The counselor's office,
They look comfy.
where Data apparently regularly goes an hour over his allotted session time, to the point where his therapist is just like Googling vacation location. Googling vacation.
Put the 1 year
locations.
later in between the start of that counseling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be an
I
easy,
don't know that that's Troy
fan
at
edit
her
to make.
most professional, by the way, surfing the web.
She's probably just doing this as a favor, not even as like a professional.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't
and
think
he's
she
still,
went back to work.
He's
No.
still going an hour over his. I think she's off the hook. Like,
Yeah.
she's
And
allowed
also,
to,
by
like,
the way,
stop paying attention.
I do
So, yeah.
love Riker's
And
line.
apparently, like that seems they're supposed to have a scene between Data and Soji there, because they're like, we should, but they had already paid for Marina Sirtis, and they're like, yeah, you can't add another actor.
Barkley just comes in the background randomly.
Maybe
He's
maybe
waiting for
we'll
her.
see. Maybe Issa Briones and Brent Spiner can have a scene together in one of the. We keep like pitching new movies to Paramount Plus, but
Paramount Plus. I was like, you know what? Paramount Plus should just do a Kickstarter and be like, if you want these two people to have us like seen together, crowdfund it. Like,
I'd be curious
would be
what would win. The D takes her place in the Fleet Museum.
The fat one.
Where it's so fat it can barely fit in its ring, but I guess they still get it parked in there. I thought it was cool seeing the Riker, Picard, and Geordi on the bridge for one last time. Like, just like the conversation. How many times has the ship saved the day? Just, Riker's line. Man. I think more times than the years would allow 3 old men to remember.
It's a great line. This is another tears scene for me.
I also love that they say, I missed that voice. And,
that was nice.
So, okay, they're getting pretty good at like using, speaking of AI, they've gotten pretty good at like using it to like recreate voices and stuff though. Like, what if, because Riker missed that voice, going forward in the 25th century, maybe Admiral Riker has the Majel voice reinstalled on all the operating systems, and we get her back.
Thing is, like, I'm cool with using AI in this, where she clearly gave her permission. I am getting wary of how it's being used in real life.
No, Majel said like, when I die, like, use whatever you need for the computer. Like,
she distinctly gave permission specifically for this, so I'm okay with it.
Rod said that his
people
mom,
say, "Oh, it's all computer generated already."
Yeah.
I'm like, no, those are clips. I've those episodes.
I mean, Father was literally able to name the exact episode they used. In the last episode.
I just stopped arguing because it's like it's not worth it.
But yeah, this is like in the last episode of Cheers when Sam turns out the lights on the bar.
Or the last episode.
He hits that painting that you have to Google why it's important, but
I don't think this is a spoiler for Babylon 5 at all, even if you've never watched the show, but it is from the very final episode. So if you don't want to know, skip forward 20 seconds. But the last episode of B5, Joe Michael Straczynski turns the lights off of the station. It's like some little maintenance guy in the jumpsuit.
But then other things happen after that.
They do a similar thing. They do it on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then someone yells at them. He's like, "This is a police station. What are you doing?"
We don't turn the lights off.
It's great.
Yeah.
But
I want them to walk out. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I did like that they kind of, even though it's a sad sort of, or at least melancholy scene a little bit, that Riker also did mention Majel's voice, and so there was that, like, a little bit of up tempo energy to that too as they were shutting it off. It wasn't like goodbye forever. There was some positive energy.
Go back to it at any time.
Yeah.
And
I just wanted them, like, as the door was shutting, like a panel falls off or something. I was in a hurry.
Space Dock built back bigger and better than ever in 1 year.
Very quickly.
So not only are they like incredibly stout stations that can hold up to a lot of weapon fire for a long time, but you can also build one in a year.
Well, did it actually? It didn't like blow up, did it? I thought they just knocked out its defenses.
Yeah.
Maybe they just had to be like, put it back right.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm fine with it.
If now it just look like if it just now looked like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, just like a little off kilter.
But yeah, we have, I guess, mom and dad taking their kid to school on his first day of school is what it feels like, with taking Jack to his first posting. It's just funny to me that like old Admiral Picard, like he gets like the shuttlecraft out of the garage to like drive his son.
He's like, Dad, we could beam. He's like, well, it's more fun to ride in a shuttle.
When I was your age, I could have beamed. Never mind.
I know that moment you're talking about, Dave, when Picard sees that they renamed the Enterprise, renamed the Titan to the Enterprise after he's just saying like names mean almost nothing, and Jack's like they mean almost everything.
Yeah,
the scene was good. There was a moment, the way they were talking, I genuinely thought they were going to like say they renamed it to Picard, and I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Well,
he's
still alive
notion.
though.
Right.
But I mean, they named.
But
they named,
like as an impulse, that would make some sense.
They named an aircraft carrier George Bush when George Bush was the first George Bush when he was still alive.
Yeah.
Well, let's definitely not emulate.
Sad that the Titan lost its name because they had
came from this theory that I remember when Picard the series first started. That a theory that I did not actually believe was that he was going to die at the end of the first season, which he does. But then the ship would be called the Picard, and that would be like the continuing series.
Star Trek Picard. So like Star Trek Voyager or Star Trek Enterprise.
But my joke was someone said like, oh, because the shows are always named after the ship, and I responded, I don't remember a ship called the Next Generation.
But yeah, turning the Titan into an Enterprise makes absolutely zero sense in universe.
Also, the Titan did a lot of good things. It's like that name is now. They could take another ship. Is it just going to be like musical names?
It was like two Titans. It was a Titan, and then it was the Titan A, and this is supposed to be the Luna class Titan, but maybe with parts from the old Savick Shangri-La class
identity crisis.
You wouldn't even know about unless you looked at the Instagram posts.
I don't mind there being a new Enterprise. I find it confusing that it's the Titan.
It makes sense from the perspective of like sort of what works really for casual audiences is like, this is the homage to a 35-year-old crew. This is the ship they've been flying around in this whole season. Let's put it together into a final trophy. I know y'all know how it works, but I'm like, it would be the kind of thing. It's like, for that other Star franchise, if Favreau and Filoni could do the explanation portion. Father, I know that you're not up, but this current season of Mandalorian seems to be doing a lot of legwork to bridge the gap between these movies and the sequel trilogy. The whole Palpatine returned. How did the First Order happen? They seem to be really doing some work to say, here's how. So yes, we need a little scene like that, or a book scene or something that kind of makes a better case for it.
I strongly disagree. I don't think there is a good case to be made out of this.
I'll say if I were to try to make one, I'm not going to go. There's not some hill to die on, but it's that just the sort of there's the emotionally it feels right or whatever, but that this was a sort of as often as they have saved the galaxy. This is one of the biggest. I don't. Is it bigger than returning with Gracie the Whale? Is it bigger than any number of times that they've saved the galaxy? I don't know. But somebody at Starfleet decided that it was, and that Picard had
But they do that anyways. They have a bunch of Enterprises anyways. Like there was never not going to be an Enterprise G.
We gotta make one anyway, so let's go.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody decided to do something unprecedented. Let's put it on a guy who was like, man, Picard, and now his son. It's such perfect synergy. Let's do this. If you want to be cynical, maybe it was a PR campaign.
They did keep it as a secret. Like it seemed like everyone was in on the joke except for Jean-Luc.
So. Yeah.
The whole world cheers because they were all watching on a closed circuit TV.
Smile, you're on candid camera.
I would like to point out that this is the second time in as many years that a sad boy has nearly destroyed the universe. We had basically the burn, and now we have this. I was alone and I wanted to have friends. Basically.
Yep.
But this one made a lot more sense. This one felt like
I agree. But it was just funny. It was like, that's kind of true.
And I'll say this about the season is like everything in this ending, it felt like, okay, they knew this was going to be the ending when they wrote the first episode. It didn't feel like
there's not like just discovering it through midway through or something.
Yeah, which is what previous seasons of Picard and Discovery have felt like. So
I know that most of the people I follow are various Trek fan circles and stuff, and I know that's broadly been very well accepted. Does anybody know like how the casual audiences are liking this? I'm gonna bet they were pretty happy, but I don't know.
I know
it seems like it.
I think so. I know my friend's stepfather's been watching it, and he's a TNG fan, but like not in this way like we are of like on with everything. She was saying that she just heard him. He's like just catching up with the third season right now, and she said she just heard him yell, "It's Worf!" happily from the other room.
It seems like when we're walking around, if we're in costume for a Star Trek, an LA away team event or something or whatever, the general crowd reaction is really positive. Which I'm always terrified whenever I put on a uniform because I'm still flashing back to high school in the 80s.
Bullies and assholes.
Shot, probably. Yeah, exactly. And now people are like, oh my gosh, it's Picard. That's so awesome. And you're like, what universe am I in? Like,
yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
We all need to go to that planet from Prodigy where they venerated them.
Yeah, for the most part, I've had positive reactions. When I've been out, like I would do it if I was a group. When I've been out, it's usually been like around Halloween. Except that one time I was dressed. Except that one time I was dressed as Janeway. That we don't.
Oh yeah, that was that Tuvix asshole or something.
Yeah, I assume
we don't talk about Tuvix.
Yeah, I assume that you meant Tuvix. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough to figure out exactly why he was so mad.
Don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
People are weird.
So then we get our final scene, our little bit of energetic leap forward.
Oh, we still have 3 scenes to talk about.
Oh, did we? What else? What else was there before Captain Seven?
There's 7 in Jack and Raffi on the bridge of the Enterprise. And then there's the poker game, and then there's the mid-credit.
That's right. That's right. They did the full Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah, they don't know what station to put Jack at, so he's special counselor.
Why is this a hard thing? Like, why?
The doctor?
I just assumed he would be like on his way to become like a chief medical officer, but I guess not.
No, we put him in red. Like, okay.
I guess they want to keep their options open.
That one did seem odd to me, but yeah, I guess that's exactly what it is. Is they needed him to sit somewhere probably, but they didn't want to pin it down too much.
He's such a Mary Sue character. He's like good at everything. He's like, oh, I speak 36 languages, and I'd be awesome at security, and I'd be awesome at this and awesome at that. And
I'm kind of good at science. Like, yes, you are good at science because you're a
father.
Doctor.
Are you saying that jokingly, the Mary Sue character thing?
No, he totally is, but they kind of shine a light on it. They kind of
like
they but like medical stuff is his main thing. Like I don't see him like it's not like he was saving the day constantly doing anything that was ever needed. Right, like he was also like a character who was hugely flawed.
I'm just saying, like here at the end, like they make a big deal of like how he's.
Yeah, but I felt like that's like Uhura's cross training in Strange New Worlds.
I was talking more of like a jack of all trades kind of thing.
Jack.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mean to do that.
Well,
I know you didn't mean to.
He's also hanging out in a cube, so he's also a Jack in the Box.
Hey.
No. But you know what I do like about this crew, though, as they highlighted, they are in their way kind of all a bunch of like outlaws and maverick types, and I think that depending on how they want to portray that in the show, should everything come to fruition, I think that's a neat, kind of a cool vibe.
I see the hand of Admiral Janeway in putting all 3 of them together on the Enterprise on I guess the flagship of the Federation.
I feel like you see Janeway. This is gonna be fun.
And they're like joking with each other. They're kind of like Jack is like right away, like almost like pranking. They're trying to prank the bridge crew, and there's like banter between them. Like it's kind of a fun vibe.
Like, just ignore him. It's like I always do.
I'm making the assumption that it's been a year. Jack has probably hung out with these people in that year. So like there's even more of a relationship than like what we've already seen them go through.
That makes sense.
They did a good job with Jack. Obviously,
And-
not just the actor, but like we,
And
the
Sydney
audience,
was-
really had to embrace that.
Sydney was still there too, right? I didn't make that up,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, she was the one who was like, ignore him as like I usually do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was funny. Or that was funny.
Do we lose
There's
Father
definitely
somewhere
a
in there?
thing of like they're setting up for a show, but they don't want to
Yeah.
establish too much. Like we don't want to know what Seven's catchphrase is, and we also don't
Fun
necessarily
will now
want
commence.
Yeah.
I like that. There's a little tradition I've sometimes seen that in movies of a pregnant
love
pause rather than a full reveal. The one that I
Mhm.
always think of because
they
it
cut it
wasn't
there.
for something important was what was the movie Patriot Games way back when was just like we know that not Harrison Ford but his character Jack Ryan, his wife was pregnant and there was a question of what the baby
right.
was. And they got the results, and she was just about to say what it was, and the movie ends. But it's like, it gives you this sense of forward momentum and energy.
Mhm.
It's not a key question to the
Yeah.
story.
I can think of
And
like
there's a little connection
couple
between
in the
Star Trek because
MCU.
Gates McFadden played his wife in the first movie.
That's right. That's right.
Yep. And I was excited for her to come back because I'd read the second book because she said something like, if this isn't Star Trek or something like that. It was like the character. It had nothing to do. It was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see Gates McFadden do that. Where's Gates McFadden? It was like, anyway, sorry, go ahead. And they didn't do
No, I could think of a couple in the MCU. The famous being they don't say Avengers Assemble till
Right.
Endgame, and then the first two Spider-Man movies ending with "What the," and then the movie ends.
Right. Yeah. I like that
Mhm.
that approach in general.
They have beaten me up with these every captain has to have a catchphrase type thing in
I agree.
in modern
I
Star
agree.
Trek so much. They've beaten the fight out of me.
It.
I've been defeated. I've given up. That's just a thing in Star Trek now. Cool.
Yeah.
They did like when I watched the Strange New Worlds trailer and they did like the same joke with Spock. I didn't even care
Yeah.
anymore. I was just like, fine.
See, I like
what
to
they
give
are?
it more there because Spock just like did not get it. Like,
Father,
Well, neither
they're
did
like
Saru.
Khan. They're like, I have hurt you, and I wish to go on hurting you.
It doesn't hurt anymore. I've
Yeah,
just
right.
accepted it.
But you've become numb to it.
Yes.
But I thought
join
in a
us,
way,
Father.
in a way that this was a decent way to handle it because
Mhm.
they didn't have to commit to anything.
So
They
are,
just
are
kind
they
of.
gonna retcon in catchphrases for Kirk and Archer and Cisco and
I like the idea of it getting
Janeway
increasingly
Janeway had one.
harder.
Do it.
To come up with new ones.
Here's my notion. They're gonna have to they'll overdub it and Kirk
Because
an
I
AI
never
voice.
thought about it. They all said engage, right? Before
I guess
some people said engage. Like Pike says engage in the cage. That
he
rhymes.
does. Yeah.
fire it up, me lads. That's what I
They
want.
should,
Dal has go fast on
I will
Prodigy.
say,
And warp me for Captain
Freeman on lower decks.
Freeman.
Yeah.
I think someone in the Prime universe should still punch it from the Kelvin universe Pike because I always thought that was a good one.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I like hit it more because punch it is exactly what Han Solo says.
That's fair.
What's that scratching noise? Does anyone
No
else hear
idea.
that?
Yeah, I hear it, but I don't know what it is.
No, maybe it's
I don't
me.
hear it. Maybe it's me.
But I guess our second to final scene, the poker game and Guinan's, and
I love
and
that they're
Ten
playing
Forward.
Guinan's just like death glaring at them. Off
Yeah,
screen.
like at some point, Guinan is like watching this like off screen and just like rolls her eyes and just like walks out the door. I guess, yeah, it's like we
They'll lock
can't
up.
see her, but she's there. Okay,
Look, we can't afford we couldn't afford we definitely can't afford Whoopi Goldberg. Like you got her last season.
yeah,
you
this
gotta
is,
be
this is
happy with
the
it.
cheap season, but everything.
They could have cut to her in the bar. They had other, which is like you see her off, like a different
Mhm.
cut where she's just.
But
looking.
I did honestly just like hearing the name. It's a little bit of that
No,
Trek
I-
family vibe.
This is one of the things that I thought would be likely. They end playing poker, so they
Yeah,
they
you
did echo the-
totally
Yep.
totally called
But I
this.
thought it was going to be on the Enterprise. I thought it might be in the 10 Forward in the Enterprise where the show began with Picard's dream when it was playing. Blue
they did
Skies.
not have the budget to
Yeah.
build that set.
Yes. So they
I
went
still
back
like the
to-
idea of Geordi retrofitting that 10 forward to look like this 10 forward. So we have like all the
If he's
places.
like anyone else in this show. He has no problem reusing the set at any
Yeah.
possible
Exactly.
opportunity. So
It's weird, the aerial shot. It must be like the table is moving every time they're doing something because it makes the green drink do this weird, like, it looks like, almost like it's been superimposed, the liquid in the
Mm.
upper left. Like we in the theater, we're like, what is going on with that? And then we realized, oh, it's just the table moving enough. So it was like, it gave it a very weird,
cool.
otherworldly
I was
sheen.
like, I kind of looked down for the second, look back. I was like, how long are they fucking playing poker in these credits?
Yeah.
Like,
In the our comments, Mark Boyd says heard they recorded 40 minutes of card playing improv. And I kind of wondered about that too. The camera held on it so long, and they just continue kind of naturalistically playing in the kind of vibe of their characters. It's fun. I wonder what little edits there might be in there.
Like Deanna's like,
like I'd be so interested in hearing like what they're actually saying to each other.
But it felt so real because they're like,
on the like the 40-minute uncut scene.
They're like talking over each other, and it's like they're to the point to where like they're kind of like breaking character in a way that like I don't mind. But it's like it made me think of Star Trek 4. I always get so excited at that ending when I see everyone splashing around in the water and they're all just kind of like laughing and playing like they're little kids, even though like they're all old people by that point.
And it feels is it because it feels like it's the actors too?
Yeah, that's it. And as especially with them, we're like, we know like that cast didn't always get along like this TNG cast does. And you see like Leonard Nimoy like with this giant grin, like he's clearly breaking character from Spock, but it's like I don't care. It's like I'm so just damn happy when I see that and see all of them being happy. It's just delightful
to watch like adults having fun like kids. Like
and I sort of figured
Spock here
was keying off of Gracie's joy too.
Yeah.
I
think the only thing that breaks their characters for me is the picture of Jack has in his quarters.
Well, let's talk about that. We get
his
the
parents.
Yeah.
So we get the post-credit scene of this totally does not work. This was a no-no. This was bad. You messed up when you did this.
I way prefer that to like them using a production still that makes you question how they got the camera into the Nexus.
Yeah.
Like
True.
You know what's funny? I don't think I thought about this for 1 second after it ended. I didn't think about it.
Oh, that's funny. I actually looked up what it is and all this stuff.
I knew it was probably a red carpet or something like that. But I looked and I went, oh, it's a picture from them from the holodeck or something like that.
Oh, I guess we should say for people listening to this, that we have a still up showing the photograph in Jack's cabin. It appears to be a real life photo of Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart, him in a tux, her in a dress or whatever at some event.
It's from January 1988. It is the premiere of the documentary called Television, and they're at the red carpet. And if you brighten the picture up, you can see he's holding sunglasses.
Okay, one of my nitpicks is when in photos it's clearly like a projection still that does not make sense. People are looking off in a way you do not do while taking pictures. Like they aren't looking, but like in a way that actually looks natural. Like it looks like Picard or Patrick Stewart. It's just like talking to somebody else and someone snapped a picture. Like it looks like an actual photo, and I much prefer that. Yeah. Like I can think of
or a bad Photoshop job where they put
exactly. I can think of like a picture in I want to say it's Days of Future Past, and you see Jennifer Lawrence from the first movie, and you're just like, when did they take that photo? She's glaring moodily in the distance. That is not how people take photographs. Also, this movie takes place in the that photo was taken in the 70s. It does not look like it. Like, so I am pro this photo.
But this is the mid-credit sequence, right?
Yes.
This is Jack in his quarters.
I love that we're debating this and not Q.
I guess it's one of those where it's like it feels so kind of like bonusy that I didn't I didn't worry too much about it. A photo. But I would kind of have preferred the guest star not be the guest star that they did.
I didn't mind. It always it makes sense to me that Q exists out of time.
They just did though such a big farewell. It was what made me able to work with some of the hokier stuff in season 2. I was like, but his death was so good.
I thought that picture was dumb as hell, and I never want to see it again. But that's just me. Q being present though in Jack's life is interesting. I don't. It's supposed to be Q before he dies because he's
it should have been Q's son.
But we wouldn't. Then we're stuck with that actor for whatever comes next. So
he doesn't act anymore. So
it's with whoever they cast,
son, right?
Right.
Yeah. You're saying if there was like a new actor who was portraying his father.
I think they could do that if they do Legacy or in a movie or whatever comes next. They could have Q be like, "Oh well, I have to go die to like fix your old man's broken heart or whatever." So, but my son here will take over.
I kind of agree with that
trial.
Joanne in the audience, she said, "I hated this, but Q looks good." He did look good.
See, I always like what Jill just said. I always assumed season 2 was something like that because I assume Q lived for an insane amount of time.
Yeah.
I love what he's wearing. It made me think
he
of
looks a little Doctor Strange-ish in some ways.
He felt like a Star Trek space god to me. He felt like he could have been, I don't know, one of the who are the people from Arena? Metrons. He could have been like a Metron or something. Or maybe even Apollo. It kind of has like Greco-Roman vibe to it.
But here's the thing is, I can also imagine they never follow up on this, and they mainly did it just for a little synchronicity with Encounter at Farpoint.
It totally works.
Yeah.
And on that level, sure. I don't mind that.
I still want him to meet Wesley because I want her to meet his brother.
Oh yeah, no, but not
that would have made
this.
sense too. If Big Brother West showed up here instead of with Soji in season 2.
Yeah, here I would take that if as long as it was Wesley and not Will Wheaton.
With everything I'm hearing about like the budget issues they'd had with other cameos, I'm wondering if Wesley was supposed to be in this season. They realized they wouldn't let them do it with the budget, and they're like, let's put Wesley in the second season so we can at least have him somewhere.
No, I know for a fact that Will Wheaton's a cheaper hire than John Delancey. So
they were supposed to have Harry Kim too, and they couldn't afford that. So.
Hopefully we see Harry and something.
Yeah, there's
supposed to be a captain, from what I understand.
It seems like there should still be subsequent options for more Trek shows to come.
Well, I'm gonna go through the Gornegs now. That's the part of the show where we run through the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections that I thought were worth mentioning. There's actually a lot in here, so I'm gonna try to spit these out as fast as I can. Starting off, we get a new franchise logo with the Enterprise D circling the Starfleet Delta and with a Borg cube instead of the Titan and the Shrike. So that was cool to see that.
That was cool.
Especially made for one episode. The opening shot after that is actually the nebula thing that you see in like the opening credits of TNG every episode. So they actually just started this episode like
neat. I didn't catch it.
The Enterprise D, in addition to having the transporter effect that Aaron brought up earlier, it also has the same warp effect. There's no hyperdrive tunnel on the Enterprise D. So like that being acknowledged in the universe.
That is fun. I like that.
We talked about President Anton Chekhov, the son of Pavel Chekhov, who...
All these things around it, too, mean something. Sorry.
Yeah, we have the General Order 12 from Star Trek 4. It's like the same thing. Like, if you're receiving this, stay the hell away from Earth. The Riker stance, the pose he gets in when he like throws his leg up, he does that on the Enterprise D bridge. That was kind of his trademark move from TNG.
Yeah, means he's taking charge.
One of the older security people helping 7 of 9 reclaim control of the ship was actually a makeup artist, James McCannon, who did makeup on Discovery and Picard, but also worked on DS9 and some of the old Rick Berman Star Trek shows back in the day. He's appeared in Star Trek a couple of times. Yeah, he was a Borg in Picard season 1. He shows up in Discovery somewhere. So James McCannon, he was in the Ready Room earlier this season too, talking about doing the makeup. When Jack is assimilated and becomes the Borg Vox, he has a very similar facial prosthetic, Borg implant to what Locutus was wearing on the right side of his head. And when
he'll point out that he looked hot in it, so I'll just bring that up so he's not here.
They didn't make him bald, so I would have made him go bald, just make him more like son of Picard. But
it would have been foreshadowed in that one scene where he was like, "When did the hair go?"
Yeah, and then you do like the 1 year later thing, and you have his hair back, so it would have worked. They didn't do that though. Maybe they tested it; didn't look cool. I don't know. The Queen says to Picard that she wanted to live long enough to bring him there so that he could witness his future's end, similar to the taunt that she gave him when she had him seemingly captured prisoner and about to witness the death of his future with the destruction of the Phoenix in Star Trek First Contact. Data talks about his gut telling him that he could make those piloting maneuvers. That was something that they first started talking about with him and Geordi in the TNG episode The Defector in season 3. Geordi's kind of explaining to him what humans mean when they say they have a gut feeling about something. And then in Data's day, Data's talking about how he wishes that someday he would develop a gut instinct of his own. And so here we get it here. So it finally paid off.
Oh yeah, about like he says that about the spy that he's like you were right. She acting sus.
Yeah.
We have an imposter among us.
Also, in that scene when Troy says, "Why am I sensing enjoyment?" Right before she said that, there is a visible 47 on screen on the side of labeled on the side of Data's console. And so I got like a big smile on my face when I saw that 47, and then it was kind of weird when I heard Counselor Troy saying, "Why am I sensing enjoyment?" I was like, "Damn!" Like she's like detecting it like through my TV.
That's some serious beta
Through the screen.
Worf does he kind of paraphrases his famous Klingon quote. Today is a good day to die. He jazzes it up a little bit. He says, "It is a fine day indeed to die with honor."
I was glad for the change up. He said good day to die maybe a few too many times.
Yeah.
You gotta change it up sometimes. There's a shot of the Enterprise D flying side by side with the Enterprise G, but we don't know it's the Enterprise G yet in the episode. We still think it's the Titan
at that point.
I guess it's technically the Titan, but in retrospect. But it mirrors a shot from Star Trek 6 of the Enterprise A and the Excelsior, which would end up being the design for the Enterprise B. So it is kind of like you're seeing like, the last Enterprise and the next Enterprise side by side in both instances. And then speaking of that, there's that line from Geordi about taking care of the Enterprise. He says, "After all, she's always taken good care of us." I thought that was another excellent callback and bookend to Encounter at Farpoint when Admiral McCoy told a very young Data, "You treat her like a lady and she'll always bring you home." So I just want to point
so
out,
young after watching
I
now.
know.
Just like, wow.
I want to point
Michael
out
Dorn looks like a teenager.
I want to point out that in that scene in Encounter at Farpoint, when we see Data and McCoy together, Brent Spiner is now much older than DeForest Kelly was back then when this was shot.
Oh wow,
that's crazy. Well, they had DeForest Kelly in like age makeup, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
right.
Yeah,
but
I thought you were going to say he's older than McCoy. I'm like, wait, no, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, McCoy was supposed to be like 100. He was supposed to be 100 billion years old.
He's supposed to be like 150, but as our friend Larry Nemechek loves to point out, he doesn't look a day over 90.
He doesn't look a day over 147, Fathery.
That probably is what Larry would say. He says he's the only person who says 47 more than I do. When Troy is flipping through the vacation locations on her pad, I guess it's a toss up between Kaffir Prime or Orlando. There's some familiar worlds on there. Omicron Ceti 3, where you go to get high off of plant spores, I guess. Vulcan, Andoria, Bajor, Trill, Zaldor 4, which was mentioned in When the Bow Breaks. And
I'm gonna take a vacation to Bajor.
Yeah, and then there's some real life Earth locations listed also. When
Malibu,
Jack
California.
when Jack is nervous about his first posting, he says, "I've run transport through Tyrellian minefields. I've had phaser fights with Orlex duelist." I don't know what an Orlex duelist is. I'd love to find out someday. But Tyrellians were mentioned in the episode Starship Mine. Worf does Magato meditation, but I didn't know Magatos meditated, but apparently they can, or I don't know. There's some type of meditation technique named after them. I don't know.
I'm curious about that too.
I'm curious about the young lady from Venus in Data's limerick that he's never able to finish, but that was.
I'm pretty sure we know the end of that, right? Like,
there could be some weird Star Trek future word we don't know that rhymes with Venus. That this woman's body is shaped like. But yeah, that was first heard in The Naked Now. And then I assume that Terry Matalas was just like, "Hey, Patrick Stewart, what's like a good Shakespeare quote to say here?" But the one that he uses is actually Brutus from Julius Caesar, right? I feel like Dave, at some point before, I feel like you and I have talked about this quote. I don't know if it was in like something else or something, but like
I don't quite remember talking about this one. You know, in the context of it doesn't particularly suit this, but
right.
The sort of idea behind the quote makes sense. Because I know it's like the quote about there's a tide in the affairs of men. I don't know if we want to say the whole quote or what, but
you can paraphrase it if you want to give us like the short version.
Well, there's you know what? I'm going to just say it. There's a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. So ventures, or like in this case, is kind of like acts of like daring or taking risks, or risk-taking energy. So you know, it's, you know, you don't need to know too much of the context, but as Brutus and Cassius and Julius Caesar, they're talking about whether they should send out their troops after an army that's maybe atrophying, but, you know, like, should they go now? Should they wait for it to dwindle more? And this is Brutus saying, basically, seize the day, right? He's like, there's a high tide, and it's sort of a, if we don't you know, if we don't go out on it, if we don't take this risk, then we might end up bound in the shallows, and we might miss our shot to hit them while we're strong. So he says we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. So you lose their daring. I believe what I've read, and you know, Julius Caesar is actually one of the Shakespeare plays I don't know as well, but I believe he actually loses the battle, which is kind of funny. But the quote, you know, as a sort of a call to action, a call to daring, is very appropriate to the situation.
Cool.
Cool.
And then I guess during the poker game, we get a mention of it, Ryza 6 cards, which I guess is a game that I don't know if LeVar Burton like ad-libbed that or what, but
doesn't someone say what is that? Like
maybe.
Yeah.
But then after the poker game, when Q shows up, he does one more fourth wall break. You know, in season 2, and he's like saying like the names of episodes and stuff. He does it again here when he tells Jack, here I was hoping the next generation wouldn't think so linearly. Well, I think he said next generation one time in All Good Things or somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe I imagined that, but yeah, that's it. I'd be curious to hear what people thought about this episode, though. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opinions, a lot to say on it. We got a lot of responses last week about season 3, episode 9, Vox, our penultimate episode, the I guess the part 1 of the 2-part finale. Dave, what were some of the things people were saying about last week's episode?
Yeah, let's get the full range. This was the episode where the Borg Queen turned Jack into Vox. I can't remember what all else happened other than the Borg. Basically, this was the dark day before the dawn, where they took over the fleet at Frontier Day. Was the biggest thing. Anyway, so starting off, Christopher Goose says, Terry Matalas gave me back something I thought ended with my childhood. Generations was the first Trek film I was old enough to watch at the cinema. It was crushing to lose 2 heroes in Kirk and the 1701D. Some say there's too much nostalgia in season 3. I say if this is the final breath of the TNG franchise, it is given in love, hope, and with respect to so many of us inspired by these epic tales. And he concludes, the bad guys lost the instant Picard sat in the chair. # Kirk lives. Trek on the Tube says some episodes are made to work on an emotional level above all else. This is one of them, and it does that extremely successfully. You know, this is a longer one. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I kind of suggest checking out our tweets from Karen Chu, who begins, okay, I'm going to defend Jack here, and says, kind of feel like I'm the only viewer invested in him, which I don't necessarily think that's true, but we did kind of like beat up Jack a little bit for running off seemingly haphazardly to the Borg Queen.
I think I defended Jack there.
Yeah, I think you did.
Like,
and I think we all said that if they had brought all that stuff in like an episode earlier, we would have had that time to process it. So
I think that's true. I stand by that. I think Jack was like somewhat compelled, like did not have control over his actions.
Yeah. She makes Karen Chu's. She made a series of tweets that were kind of like a sort of like trying to a little bit of psychoanalysis of why he did what he did, and I thought she did a good job and made a good case for it. So just I kind of suggest folks check that one out. Let's see. Guys for One Direction says, best episode in 20 years. I'm 48. Grew up with Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. I love the original also. I had a feeling it would be the D when they went back to find an old ship, but the emotional impact of seeing it, the cast reaction, and the music, I was in tears. A+. Let's see. I'm not gonna get this name right. Anasio Malachenko. My least favorite episode of Picard season 3. Not saying it was bad, just least favorite. Captain Pikachu says, I believe they should not have dragged out the reveal and leave it only for the last 2 episodes to resolve everything. If this was any other Trek show, especially Discovery, they'd be raked over the coals, but it seems the nostalgia was weaponized well to smooth the bumps. And then another tweet said, it was an okay episode. The nostalgia's nice, though personally a little drowning. But the resolution of seemingly of Shaw and Seven's story is very disappointing. If I never have to see another death equal redemption plot again, it'd be too soon. I think that is somewhat fair. We do see a fair number of those in these genre shows.
Yeah.
I would say I feel like the other Star franchise is way more guilty of that than this one.
I mean, yeah, that's arguably true. Sparky Say My Name says, snarky data is life. Let's see.
My friend designed a shirt with the I hope we die quickly exchange, and
that's great.
It.
Yeah, that deserves to go ahead and.
I'm sure
lexicon.
I will wear that in a future streamer eventually when it comes in.
I still want to let's get the hell boldly. Sorry, let's
boldly get the hell out of here.
So she also made that shirt.
A little bit too much whiskey.
She also made that shirt, and I bought that too. So that will also appear at some point.
Very cool.
Let's see. Dan, whose name is followed by a little emoji thing, says Captain Liam Shaw needs to be resurrected from the dead now. I don't think they're going to do that. I had some hopes 1 episode ago, but
Terry
I think now
has a plan apparently.
Really?
In his AMA today, yeah, he's like, oh, it makes sense. You're gonna love it. Blah blah blah. Todd is super excited about it. We're talking about all the possibilities.
Have recorded a bunch of stuff
I think it'll be something like flashbacks or something, yeah, because apparently
I don't know,
he does that a lot on 12 Monkeys. Characters die, but then they show up a lot in flashbacks and stuff.
Well, apparently we have 2 Worfs. Somebody just tweeted a thing with 2 pictures where Worf gets off the turbolift, and half a second later he also gets off the turbolift again. The John Van Sitters is it's a transporter clone.
Changeling.
Changeling, yeah, there you go.
We had a few others, but I think that that covers a little sort of a spectrum of reactions. Let's call it there.
Cool. Well, we'll be back next week. We won't have a new episode to talk about, but we'll be able to look back on not just all of season 3 as a whole, but all of Picard as a whole, and perhaps if this is really the end, all of the TNG saga as a whole. So I guess I should open this bottle of a Chateau Picard wine that I originally was going to open it at the top of the show, but I kind of forgot about it. But yeah, if people were here, I'd be curious. Comment or let me know somehow if you were if you're able to. But if anyone was here 3 years ago, I opened another bottle of Chateau Picard when Dave and I discussed the very first episode of Star Trek Picard back in early 2020, right before everything got real nuts.
When we
we
were more innocent then.
Yeah,
it does feel that way.
It's very
Father,
different.
I feel like I want Q to appear behind you and say, it's the end of the series, but it's just the beginning for you, Fathery.
Well, maybe it is, but yeah, I'm gonna drink this terrible wine.
Imagine if you could like pay John Delancey to just prank people like that.
Oh man,
Isn't he on?
I'm sure he's done cameos. In fact,
Oh,
I think
he's on Cameo,
fully
I
on
think.
Cameo, but I want John
Yeah.
Delancey to physically
Just to
break
show
into
up.
your home.
Well, that would
For
be
double
interesting.
For double his cameo fee, he will break in. Fathery, I'm jealous of your drink. Would you care
I am
to give
jealous
us a
of your
toast?
Is it sour?
Or no, you're just gonna drink.
No, that's fine.
Oh no, is it bad?
Well, it's Chateau Picard.
I don't know.
Apparently.
Yeah, I'm not really a wine drinker, but this
Oh,
bottle
okay.
this bottle had been sitting in my closet for 3 years. So I guess
Okay.
it's well aged. I don't know. It's 2017. Is that a good year for wine? 2017.
The Age
don't
Discovery came
know.
out.
Yeah, it's the age of this modern era of Trek. So
There we go.
appropriate.
Fathery,
There we go.
Fathery, on such a full sea, we are now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures.
All right. Well, Dave is our chief. What did I call you yesterday? Our chief armchair Shakespearean on the
Yeah,
Starship
sure. Let's roll with it.
Okay.
Look, I don't have time. I'll give you a Jane Austen quote later. That's what I'm going to
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, come back next week. We'll still have more to talk about, and
Oh.
of course, other Trek shows throughout the year. With
For once, my mic is not in the way. You can actually see that there's a picture of Picard on my wall,
oh, nice.
right under Kirk.
Yeah.
Got in here for one
Yeah.
final episode.
Mhm.
Until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.